Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Midnight Festival, a late-night talk show focused around the discussion and analysis of video games and related media. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, Koji Igarashi's return to the Metroidvania genre. I'm your first of three of the hosts, name of Jade.
My name is Kiowa.
And my name is Cole. I'm your third of three hosts returning from our original pilot Persona episode, if you happen to catch that one. So, Bloodstained, Metroidvania by Koji Igarashi. I don't know how much have you guys played of his original works, the Castlevania games?
Well, I played the original Castlevania for NES, and that was my only experience with all of Castlevania's franchises up until, well, I guess this isn't technically a Castlevania game, even though it's made by the same guy.
This is like
Same
a spiritual
style.
successor, you could call it.
Yeah, exactly, but not exactly part of the canon universe of Castlevania, right?
Yeah, no, this is a totally different... This isn't in the Castlevania universe at all.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that was literally my only Castlevania game was for the NES. So this is like the first time I played one of like the true form style Metroidvanias.
And so, continuing with you, Kiowa, real quick, how about Metroid?
Oh, so Metroid, yeah, I played a few games. I played like Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime, for Game Boy. But that's about it. Yeah, that's it for my Metroid experience as well.
So you do have experience with the genre of Metroidvania in general, like any other Metroidvania games you can think of that you have experienced?
Yep, I've played games like Hollow Knight, Blasphemous, Rogue Legacy, Dead Cells. So I'm a bit of a connoisseur of the Metroidvania line of games.
So you're pretty experienced then.
Yeah, I'd say I'm decently experienced with Metroidvanias, yeah.
Okay, so same questions to you, Jade. Castlevania and Metroid, and then just any Metroidvanias. Like, how experienced are you in this genre?
I'd say about mild to moderately experienced in the Metroidvania genre. I've only played, Castlevania-wise, I've only played Aria of Sorrow, the game, the one with Soma. That's all The one with Soma, that's Aria of Sorrow.
Yeah, there's two with Soma. That would be the Game Boy Advance one.
Yep.
That you're talking about.
I've only played that one. And Metroid games, I played Metroid Prime on the GameCube, and I think Metroid Fusion, and that's it. Otherwise, I've only played Hollow Knight, and that's really all I've delved in the Metroidvania like genre.
Okay, so I think I've got probably a lot more Metroidvania games in both just Castlevania, the series, the Metroid series, and then other Metroidvania games. But you guys both have experience here, so there's more to draw from when we get into talking about the game. But what do you guys think a Metroidvania is my biggest curiosity before we get into Bloodstained itself. Kiowa, starting with you.
Ooh.
Like a Metroidvania. What is that genre? What does that mean?
What does Metroidvania mean to me?
Yeah.
I guess I think of like a platformer sort of game. There's got to be some platforming, probably a 2D game as well, like a side scroller. Yeah, sort of like a linear advancement system where you just kind of gain power-ups along the way as you play, and you just kind of gain access to areas that technically were accessible to you like pretty much right when you started off, but you just didn't have the abilities to really like make a jump or something,
Yeah.
So that's like a Metroidvania, I guess, is what I think of one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to really strongly agree with that. Areas that were always accessible, you just didn't have the ability to get there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Jay, does your perspective align with that a lot, or what other things would you add?
That's the first thing I think of is usually the 2D planes. There's like really obviously divided rooms. I always think of that too. It's not really ever fluid. It seems like, there's always like, you look at the map and it's always those rectangles. That's how I know it's a Metroidvania game, when there's just a bunch of rectangles on the map.
So what do you guys think about Metroid Prime, though? Would you consider that a Metroidvania?
I almost don't even consider that. I don't consider that a Metroidvania.
You don't? Because it's not 2D?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, when I think of Metroid Prime, I think of it more as an adventure game, I guess. I really don't think of it. I never thought of it before, but it doesn't fall within my category of what I imagine Metroidvanias are, even though it's Metroid in the title. But
Okay.
yeah, I guess that's interesting. I never really thought of it like that. But yeah, like when I think of Metroid Prime specifically, although it does have all those same things, like the progression paths are the same, and you need specific, you need double jump to get to areas. It doesn't seem the same to me. So maybe that's just me being a little stubborn on my classification of Metroidvania. It would be an adventure game with a Metroidvania progression style.
I see. Okay. Well, I mean, you're kind of on an adventure, and that's such a broad word, but I won't get into that. I think that Metroid Prime is a Metroidvania, if only because, it's a Metroid game. But to me, I think Kiowa was really spot on. I think it's all about that progression where you're only gated by the power of your character, and that's how you get. You're not subject to cutscenes and arbitrary triggers to advance the game. It's about your character's abilities.
Yeah, like I remember back to like Metroid Fusion. Like I don't think any game really made me feel like that more than Metroid Fusion, where you're just so barred from like areas and it just like frustrates you. I love how sometimes they'll make it so you're like tantalizingly close
Yeah.
to completing a jump, but then and you try it like dozens and dozens of times and then you realize that you can't physically like make that jump actually. So then you realize that there must be some sort of jumping power up or something later on.
Yeah, it's funny how they tease you ahead of time with that kind of stuff. They make you try and remember things you've been through, because I think that we could probably all agree a big world that you'd be backtracking a lot, but that's part of the experience because all of your powers continue to open up new avenues of exploration.
Yeah, it's interesting how backtracking becomes a lot less of a chore in Metroidvania games because the way you navigate through the world is just changed so much, by the time you come back there again, that it's almost like going through it in a new way. So it doesn't really feel like backtracking as much because you're double jumping through past all the guys or like finding new areas in the old areas.
Oh yeah, or like some wall might explode after some boss fight or something.
Yeah.
And then it just changes the map a little bit, just a little bit, so that you can now traverse some totally new section or something.
It's pretty cool.
Well, okay, so we all know we have our own opinions on the Metroidvanias, but definitely Bloodstained is a Metroidvania. So when you guys were leading up to Bloodstained, how much did you guys actually know about it? Because I don't think I kept up. I knew it was a Kickstarter project and that it was Koji Igarashi who made the Castlevania games, but I didn't know much about it until we actually played it. So did you, we'll start with you, Jade, this time. Like, how much did you know about this game?
Yeah, it was interesting because I saw the Kickstarter, while it was being funded and whatnot. It hadn't finished the period of trying to get more funding. And I remember looking at like the trailers and the concept art and whatnot, and I was like, whoa, this looks really cool. Maybe, this is a time for me to get into like the Vania series, and I did keep up with it for a little bit, but I specifically remember there was a gameplay trailer they released or some gameplay at some convention or something like that, and it just looked didn't look as good. Looked kind of janky, to be honest. And
was that before or after the art?
That was before.
Debacle. Okay.
Yeah, they definitely like later released that the graphical upgrade before the game came out, because I guess that was a thing that a lot of people noticed. But
yeah.
Once I saw that, I started I wouldn't call it a hype train, but whatever train I was on, like the looking forward to this game train, I kind of got off
the
that.
hype train.
No, not
just the hype train again.
I got off that train, whatever it may be called. I unboarded, and I was like, I guess maybe I'll check it out when it comes out. But then when it, before it came out, they released the updated visuals, and it just looked a little bit more solid. So I was a little bit more hyped for it at that point. But it took me a year or so to play it after its release. So what does that say?
Yeah, I guess in a similar boat for me. I didn't really, well, I guess the opposite. I didn't really keep up to any of the development or release or anything about it. I was pretty much in the dark about the game. I knew that it came out because I saw Donkey tease it in one of his videos, and then I kind of just like, was a little bit, interested in it back then. But then once you guys started talking it up, then I started looking into the game a little more, and it definitely looked cool. So that's yeah, I was pretty much in the dark about it the whole time, and I went in with like almost no expectations. I didn't even know the guy, who made it was responsible for all the Castlevania games. So
Yeah, it was pretty widely anticipated.
I like that the fans are calling it, they're not calling it Castlevania anymore. They call it Igavania.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
I was seeing that in some of the discussions about the game. People are referring to it as an Igavania, which is kind of cool. A good testament to the creator.
right, because he got like the series almost stolen from him, right?
It's like it's the Konami
Capcom or
Konami, yeah,
sorry.
Konami issue. They're rascals, those bastards.
Yeah, they haven't been up to anything good in the past few years. So I think he probably left Konami. It was probably many years ago at this point. I have no idea how long it's been. But people clearly recognize his influence because that was one of the more successful Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Was Bloodstained, I think.
Yeah, it
Really?
raised $5.5 million.
Damn. Yeah, that's
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea it made so much on Kickstarter. Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say the visual overhaul they did was probably the first I had really seen anything of the game, and I wasn't, even after the visual overhaul, I wasn't enthused about the game. So I wasn't on the hype train to begin with, but I definitely didn't board it then. But I just knew, I knew how good the Castlevania series had been, despite, I mean, I haven't played every game, but the ones I had, I enjoyed. So I was into this game, or I was anticipating it. So I was pretty eager to get into this, obviously, when we started.
Mm-hmm. It was your pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was my pick of a game, but
Yeah.
like when I sat on it in my library, I wanted to play it more than anything, and getting into it, you could really easily tell that this whole game was almost Symphony of the Night, but again, as a girl character, as Miriam instead of Alucard. And I don't think neither of you have played Symphony of the Night.
No.
I think that's one of the more critically acclaimed games probably of all time. Like that's always in top 10
Yeah,
lists.
I always hear about Symphony of the Night.
It looks very
Like
cool. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that was probably a shift in the Castlevania formula a little bit towards more RPG elements that, obviously Bloodstained is abound with. But if you were to look for a game that was the most closely resembling Bloodstained in the Castlevania series, I'd say it's Symphony of the Night, and then a bit of Aria of Sorrow, actually. So I think, Jade, you would know, having played that game, a little bit about it. Just the shard system in particular.
Yeah, that was one thing that I do vaguely remember. I mean, it was a long time ago since that was Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I had to have been in like middle school, So I do remember that you could kill enemies and they would drop their shards and you could use spells and whatnot, but I don't remember much else.
Yeah,
from
it's pretty similar to Bloodstained just overall, especially in that regard. I don't think you could upgrade the souls. I think there were souls in that game. I don't know if they had the same upgrade mechanics, but beyond that, getting into Bloodstained itself, what is the game all about, really? Without drawing in any parallels to Castlevania, like if you were to pitch this game, what do you think? How would you describe it, really?
I would say you're exploring a hellish landscape, a hellish castle, killing demons on a quest to save someone that you love, in the most basic sense, right?
Okay, yeah, but
Yeah.
like if someone okay, hear me out.
Okay,
Imagine
I mean, do I want to pitch the story or what am I pitching here?
I'm just thinking like when you're going to describe a game to your friends and you just want to sell them on it as hard as possible. And maybe that's too generic of a question, but for Bloodstained in particular, what are you going to sell them on? You know, how are you going to hook them and make it so they have an idea, a picture in their head? What is this game?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna say I would definitely be gushing about, not gushing. I don't want to play out. I don't want to play all my cards right now. But I would definitely be talking about the character building aspects, and the kind of the variation of different builds, some of the challenging battles, and the exploration. I guess those are all the draws that I think I would try to hook people in with. But for me specifically, it was definitely the building your character is the coolest aspect of the game to me.
Okay, and you could build your character like how?
Oh yeah, you can pick skills, you can pick magic spells, you can pick all these different weapons that have different techniques. You can give yourself passive buffs. There's all kinds of ways to build a character in the way that you like. You can be a mage, a sword man, a melee dude, or a gun guy. There's all kinds of different ways to play. You could have toy shoes the whole fucking game. you know?
Well, what about you, Kiowa? How would you pitch it? Would you say basically the same thing, or?
Yeah, a lot of the same thing. Like, yeah, one of the biggest things that I enjoyed was like the builds and how you just had like all the shortcuts that you can just cut to whatever build. So you can stack like, all of your transport like stuff, your transport abilities to move you around. You can stack all of those on one of your shortcuts and then still have like total DPS, or some weapon that you like in particular, and you can just seamlessly switch in between all of your different like builds and weapons and setups.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the things that I enjoyed and I would pitch to people about. I mean, other than the fact that it's just like a Metroidvania, made by an acclaimed creator. So, and with all of the hype about it on Kickstarter too,
Mm-hmm.
it's
That's a good
definitely
selling
worth
point.
checking out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you were into Metroidvanias, you probably had this on your radar, I think.
Definitely, yeah. You
Yeah.
probably you wouldn't have a chance to sell this game to someone who likes Metroidvanias because they probably already bought it.
Yeah.
Or anyone in the anime spectrum at all on the internet
Once
think
they
that-
see,
is going to be hearing about Bloodstained.
You think that this is more anime inclined?
well, no, once you see Miriam,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
like anime, and then once you see that you play as a cute shard girl, then you're gonna go, okay, this is on my radar.
Yeah, I think you play as a boy in most of the Castlevania games, and honestly, the one where you main as a girl is one of I haven't played and I'm most excited about just because you're a girl. But
They
Miriam
still gave
is
you
powerful.
the option to play as a boy, though.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, did you actually try that out?
I did not. I did not actually try it out. I want Zangetsu to just have a special place in my memory, and I feel like if I actually went and I played and explored more about him, it would take him out of that spot for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
Zangetsu.
Yeah, Zangetsu mode is really similar to Richter mode in Symphony of the Night. It's honestly, I think it's kind of throwaway. It probably
Oh, really?
not really worth talking too much. I mean,
I gotta say, once I heard that you don't build Zangetsu, he has kind of everything off top. Like in the story, in the actual main game, he's already got his grappling hook and all these ways to navigate.
Yeah.
Can't change his weapons or he doesn't have shards. So
Nope.
yeah.
I that was kind of a put off right away. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
that's
just
like-
play as a guy.
Yeah, that's like already like most of the game.
Yeah, that's what I liked
So-
about the game. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy Zangetsu mode right off the bat because I think exploration is one of the bigger more entertaining aspects of these games and in Bloodstained. So when you have, there's really nothing restricting you from exploring the whole castle right away because of how overpowered Zangetsu is to a degree in his exploration ability. So it just wasn't fun anymore. And maybe it's just because, you know, I went through the game first. I knew where stuff was, but
Yeah.
You're definitely coming. You're probably gonna play Zangetsu mode second, right? So then, like, anyone who plays Zangetsu mode's already gonna know where everything is already, and then he's probably got all the navigation abilities right off the bat, so he could just go like directly to where he needs to all the time. Is what I assume.
Anything that there were special like, you know, there's a hall of spikes, right? That you need armor in the main game to bypass as Miriam.
Yep.
Those just aren't there for Zangetsu because he can't. You know, there's no building, there's no variety because it's just his
That's so
basic
dumb.
moveset and leveling. So
That makes
they
me
make
mad.
concessions for him.
I was about to
spikes
say,
there, then.
who fucking put the spikes there then? That bastard.
Yeah, it was
He
probably
must have
him, I
screwed-
guess, when you think of it in that context. But, you know, you're still fighting the same bosses and stuff, so I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's just for
I needed
fun.
to test you. I needed to make sure you could make it past these spikes.
He can just he can sink like a rock and underwater. You know, he doesn't need the dumbass water spray move or any of those
Yeah,
shards.
that's in his lore. He's very heavy.
Yep. It makes sense within the context of the game. Except the spikes. That's one thing that cannot be forgiven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the spikes.
How about the other difficulty modes? Did we
On a-
all
on a
play
s-
on normal?
Yep. I did.
Yeah, I played on normal. Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kai. Where were you going?
Oh no, I was just gonna say with that spikes, since we were on the subject, like, well, I'm sure we'll probably have to talk about that later anyway, so I might as well save my comments.
Oh,
I
yeah?
definitely have points about those spikes.
Okay.
That's a totally pivotal moment in the game.
Well, maybe
So-
we'll want to start from the top of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
an average playthrough before we get to the meat. But, you know, if you're starting Bloodstained, does anybody in particular want to give a rundown of like what it's like to start the game? And maybe even like what was your perspective like jumping into it?
Yeah, maybe I should
Kiowa.
feel that one. Yeah. So coming into the series fresh, I don't know about you guys, but I never played any of the other Bloodstained games.
Oh yeah, there's the 16-bit ones, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I
Curse
did
of the
forget
Moon?
about
Or
that.
is
I
it
think
8-bit?
the first one came out before Ritual of the Night, which is the one we're
Yeah.
talking about. So yeah,
Whoa.
I didn't even think about that. I'm not sure if that was a stretch goal or if that. I'm not entirely sure about that or the connection to the main story. So no, I didn't play
all
it.
came out. Did those all come out as part of the Kickstarter?
I think so.
Think so, yeah.
Oh, so they launched a whole, not just a game, but the whole series from this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a fresh series coming into, and Ritual of the Night I think was the main goal game, and I think the rest spawned because of that. But
Wow.
otherwise, I didn't
Yeah.
play those other ones.
I think in the Curse of the Moon, I think you play as Zangetsu in that game. Too,
I think you're right.
Wow.
Otherwise,
Okay, well, yeah. Basically, coming into the series fresh, no idea what's going on. You know, they throw you into it right away. You like kind of start off on a ship. You know, it gives you a brief rundown of the story. These alchemists summon these demons. They're like, "Oh, it was a mistake. We shouldn't have summoned these demons. Now we need you, the shard binder, Miriam, to come and save us from this mistake that we did by sacrificing you guys to summon these demons." And they let you know right away about Gebel. Yep, they let you know right away about Gebel. They tried to sacrifice him, but then somehow they couldn't quite kill him. I don't know. I guess it
survived or
was
something.
Yeah, he survived. Very mysterious. He somehow survived, and Miriam was just spared it altogether.
Which
so
is,
then,
I gotta
yeah.
say something about that. Why was she spared? Because she fell asleep? Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
easier to sacrifice someone if they were sleeping? Like they wouldn't put up a fight. They were just like,
that's
we'll wait
right.
wait until
they-
she's conscious to cut her open or whatever the
They're really
sacrifice
moral
was.
about their sacrifices. You got to be awake
Yeah.
for that.
You have to consent first.
Yeah. I thought that was a little weird too, but even
Yeah.
more strange is waking up on the ship and it was confused. She's asleep for 10 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
She awakes, she's got all her functions and whatnot. And the way she talks to people, maybe you guys understood better. Does she just remember everything from before then, picture perfect, or did she just wake up right when the game starts, or what?
Well, yeah, she had like woken up, and it seems like they just like immediately brought her out to this castle.
But she has
They
all
knew
these
she would wake up.
experiences with Jade, the way she talks with some of the other characters. I don't even know how old she is, but she made it sound like there was a whole lifetime that just happened and no time had passed. It was a little strange, but
Yeah, there was definitely some weird discrepancies between that. I mean, I'd assume that her and Jeeble were childhood friends, and she must have been like, isn't she like 18 or 19 or something when she wakes up, or what? I don't know, but that would
remember.
That would mean that she was a tiny little kid.
Yeah, unless
when
her
she fell
body
asleep.
like didn't age while she was asleep or something, which would be even more weird. But yeah, I would say just on her appearance, I would almost assume at oldest she's like mid-20s or something.
Yeah,
That
I
could
guess
be
maybe
too.
maybe they did clarify that in the game. But
I mean, I went through the
so it's
beginning
not
a
done
second
well.
time, and then that caught my attention. Not even a major point. It just kind of confused me because that sets up how they tell the story to you in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like her relationship to Jeeble is her driving force to keep going, basically. So it's kind of weird that the context is a little bit lost, a little bit muddy in the time skip that they have to have for some reason.
Yeah. Well, a big derailment there, but otherwise, I guess we're all just as confused. The narrative isn't super important at that point anyway.
Yeah, they kind of just throwing you in. Everyone knows
It's
you
an
just want to
excuse.
clobber some
Yeah,
monsters
you just wanna kill
right away.
demons.
So
Yeah, honestly, I was
Yep.
really eager for them to stop talking so I could just get into it.
yeah, I remember I already started mashing some buttons back in the intro. That's for sure.
Yeah, in the galleon.
Yep, in the galleon. I'll never forget my initial surprise right after you kill that very first monster to get the very first ability, which I ended up using all the way through the game at level 1.
Really?
No!
Oh, man.
Yeah, because I didn't really... I advanced the galleon like so fast that I didn't know that that's where you would go to get like more of those shards, and it just kind of escaped me that that's where that shard came from. But yeah, so basically, that when you kill that first enemy and get that first shard, you just get like, it stops everything. You fly into the air, and this shard just comes zooming at you, and you just like shove it through your chest. And then I was just like freaking out when I saw that because it was so visceral and jarring. But then, that was just literally only the first time, because from there on it happens about every 5 minutes
I remember you
for the rest
commenting
of
on
the
that,
entire
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it as an impalement. Like you said, she's like shoving it into her stomach intentionally, and it seemed like a painful thing. Like she was trying to hold it back, and it was stabbing her. Is how I pictured it.
Yeah, I don't even know what to expect after seeing it like hundreds of times. I can't tell which one it is. If she is driving the blade in, or if it's just the shard in, or if it's just going to her little shard on her back.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Because she's got all those tattoos, and so does Jeeble. So that must be how you tell somebody is a shard binder or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the drop, the Cerulean Splash, I think it's called.
Cerulean Splash.
You
That
used that
carried
the
me
whole
through like half the game too, honestly.
You both used that a lot, huh?
Yeah,
I liked
switched
that it
later,
bounced. I like that it bounced around.
Yeah, and it starts to go through enemies if you upgraded it too. So you could hit multiple guys with it, and it bounces back and hits them again and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, even after completing the game, I'm still not 100% on the mechanics of the game.
Really?
Like how
Like
does
for
the
shards.
shards work again? So I know you can upgrade your individual shards, right?
Okay. Yeah. There's 2 ways to
And then-
upgrade them too.
Okay, yeah. So you upgrade them like at the alchemy circle, the main hometown alchemy circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Then-
enhance them.
That enhances your shards, and that just makes them stronger, right? Or gain different effects.
Yeah,
Yeah, it increases the the effectiveness basically.
there's a
Okay.
special description that tells you what each rank of enhancement will do, which can be unique. Usually it's like more range or something is what that enhancement does
Oh,
for
okay.
offensive spells.
And
Oh, sure.
then you also get bonuses for having multiple shards of the same thing. So if you went back to kill those guys to get the
Yeah, the
Cerulean
cerulean
Splash,
splash guys.
then
Yeah.
it could be like rank 9, grade 9, and then it's the strongest it can get.
Yeah. So what is the getting more shards? That's what enhances the damage.
Depends
Generally,
on which one. Yeah.
it's
Okay.
the effectiveness of whatever the basic thing is, which is usually damage, or if it's like a passive thing that says, I think there's like, well, the basic stat ones, like there's a shard that drops that increases your strength. So if you got another copy of it, it would just give you more strength. And then
okay.
whatever the rank effect is would be just separate from that.
I see.
And then
Gotcha.
there was an additional mechanic on top of that where if you enhanced all the way to the cap of rank 9 for a passive shard, so the ones that would just give you a bonus for existing, being alive, at rank 9, they would become permanent and you didn't have to have them equipped in your one slot anymore. But you could keep it equipped and double up on the ability. Like Jade, you had your experience with the katana one.
Yeah, katana expertise would bring up my strength if I had it equipped too. But, the passive one was like it increases my attack speed as with a katana. So
Oh yeah,
for boss fights I'd put that on just to do way more damage.
and double up on it.
Mhm.
And so most enemies in the game had their own unique shards. Did you guys end up getting a lot of them? Because there was some really cool ones, and I guess I have a lot to say about shards. So I'm just curious what you
Yeah.
guys ran into first.
Yeah, I ended up collecting like so many shards. I mean, I can't imagine a monster in the game that I didn't get a shard from.
There were a couple
be
secret ones
honest.
too, and
Oh, well,
And those secret bosses had
Yep.
shards too.
that's
oh
true.
yeah, did you both fight?
I fought one of the secret bosses, and yeah, he was hard.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if we should get into it, but I think that we all fought the same boss that I'm thinking of.
You're talking
Yeah,
about the carpenter
probably.
dude or whatever?
Oh
What-
no,
what-
I'm not talking about the carpenter dude. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
okay, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
So
What
you're talking
secret
about the
boss?
carpenter.
Yeah, I'm talking about the carpenter.
Okay, yeah, there
What
were
secret
three.
boss are you talking about?
Yeah, what?
What the fuck are you talking about?
you want to talk about the secret boss?
Yeah, I guess. Oh, you're talking. Okay.
Yeah, you know
yeah.
now. Oh, well,
I know,
okay.
I know.
So Kiowa, you're talking about there were 3, maybe 4. There were 3 for sure that had enemies behind them, but there were locked doors around the castle that you just
Yep.
needed keys for, and they had special enemies that I think one of them was a throwback to Castlevania because he had a whip. But yeah, there were those doors with secret bosses that dropped special shards,
Oh.
and you fought the carpenter.
Yep, I fought the carpenter.
And what was his thing all about? Did you use that?
Well, I didn't get a shard from him, actually, I guess. I did get a weird drop. He constructed a chest, and I grabbed, like, a bone out of this chest, but I never... I'm guessing it was some crafting component. And I grabbed this bone out of his chest, and I never knew what to do with it. I actually never did anything with it.
Yeah, there's
But,
a
yeah.
whole alchemy system with those bones were like a higher end material that's very rare.
Very rare.
Did you fight the other 2 then? Did you get the other keys?
No, just the carpenter for me. I could never find the other.
I see. But I think you did, Jade. You found all of that stuff.
Yeah, I got all the achievements of the game, so I got all the shards.
Oh,
and all
okay.
the
Well,
weapons of it.
sorry.
Yeah, I
never
100%
mind.
completed the game, so
Yeah, well, why don't you just talk about it?
these
then?
poultry questions? Yeah, I collected all the shards.
they're a little beneath you at this point.
No, I honestly didn't use, hardly any of them. But I was very sure of my build. I enjoyed my abilities, and I never wanted to test the waters with why would I want to throw a bone? Why would I?
Right.
Why would I want to shoot a little fireball or whatever?
Well,
I had my shit figured out. I did dabble with some other spells, like all the ones with weird names, like Rig whatever. Those were cool. I liked those, but most of the other ones I didn't really experiment with too much. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's true. Yep, I had a nice tight combo that I just ended up using for pretty much most of the game.
They had so many different shards. Like nearly every enemy in the game had a unique shard. There were only a couple that were doubled up. So the way I saw it was if you wanted to go for completion, you could get all of them, but otherwise it would just be natural that you would get different stuff on a different playthrough and you would just play with that. Like I kind of expected us to have completely different shard loadouts throughout the game, but then, I immediately hear, I use Cerulean Splash half or all of the game.
Yeah, literally all of the game for me.
Look, I remember, man, it won me over right away. Like I got in, and there was the dude who drops Heretical Grinder, another excellent shard. And I was really scared of him, killing me. So I just sat back, threw 2 Cerulean Splashes at him, and he was dead. And I was like, this game's fucking easy. I'm just gonna throw Cerulean Splash at every enemy, and I did for half the game.
I mean, what finally won you over?
That's it.
Yeah,
Wait,
but
what
won you over
next thing?
past Cerulean Splash?
The aqua one you have to get to navigate in the thing.
No, those are on different buttons.
Oh yeah, well that's the substitute. I never used my triangle. Oh, it was the thunder one. Didn't really use it that much. But
okay, so you use Cerulean Splash half the game.
I used Cerulean Splash as my magical spell. And then I used Aqua Burst.
You just forgot about the button. You didn't even use that one at all.
I don't need triangle anymore. And then I started using that to kill everything in 1 second instead of Cerulean Splash.
Okay.
And I use my sword too to kill things in 1 second as well.
That was
honestly, probably 90% of my kills came from my swords, just my weapons in general.
You were
just because of how insanely strong they could be.
So that was your preferred build you stuck with one shortcut, or did you guys, because I think it's no secret I used all the shortcuts. We talked about that before. Or as many as I could find.
What did suck is that I would have loved to if they had just given you 6 different shortcuts right away, because that's all the weapon types. But you only get three total things for most of the game, 3 total shortcuts for most of the game, right?
I think it's 3
I don't know
or 4.
if there's I don't know if there must be secret locations where you can get them, but by the end of the game I only had 4 of the 8 shortcuts unlocked.
Yeah, there's not enough in one playthrough.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that they had opened that up entirely and not made the shortcuts be locked like that, because that stopped me from experimenting, with spears and whips and boots.
Yeah, because
all the cool stuff.
If you're in the later half of the game and now you start getting shortcuts and you're I'm already so strong I have my swords built up already. So why would I want to start from ground zero to build a gun just to use a couple times?
And the gun, and I did go with the gun build, and I upgraded my gun damage shards all the way, but still the guns by the end of the game deal no damage compared to anything else. I guess it's just the range that's powerful, but you just don't do any damage, and all the enemies can just advance straight through your shower of bullets and still just kill you instantly.
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of an imbalance in the weapon types. Not that it needed to be strictly balanced, but guns for sure felt off. The range didn't seem like much of an advantage because it's not like you're fighting in hallways all the time. There's so many different angles, and And it depended on bullets, which were consumable. So at that point, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And then they have the whole system of ammo and like max capacity of ammo and stuff too. But it's like you'll just burn through that ammo like immediately
really
if you try
fast.
to use it. If you try to rely on it super heavy, then you're just going to immediately burn through that ammo. Maybe, kill a few. Like if you're just using it in the halls, then that's like a total waste. Like you pretty much have to use that ammo on bosses.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just wasting it on total cannon fodder that is going to respawn in that room the second you come back.
Oh, yeah,
So,
because you can just walk out and all the enemies would immediately respawn.
yep, which is great for farming. Speaking, since we're talking about shards, let's talk about my favorite shard type, the familiars.
That's your favorite type, huh?
It's my favorite shard type.
Okay.
What familiars did you guys end up going with?
I kind of cheat, and my answer is I used all of them because I just had a different one on each shortcut.
Oh,
So
okay.
I all of them except I think the Buer, because there's more. You don't get enough shortcuts in one playthrough to equip every familiar, and I think that was the odd one
Sure.
out.
Yeah, I certainly never even experimented with the Buer. I kind of. Well, how about you first, Jade? Then I'll talk about my familiars.
Just Pixie Girl only.
Oh, now
Um,
I
my
didn't
waifu.
even unlock. I didn't even unlock the Pixie one, to be honest.
Yeah, she's the best, and she's the best, and she's the best familiar. No, but Silver Knight was cool. I'm not going to deny Silver Knight. I used him in the Bloodless fight, and he
Oh,
came
okay.
in very, very handy. But otherwise, I switched right back to my wife, Pixie Girl. Can't remember what her actual name is, so
Carabossa,
it's not
I
really.
think.
It's not good for me to not remember my wife's name, my Bloodless wife's name.
Yeah, looks
My
like you
blood.
used-
Well, I guess Bloodless is my wife in the game, but.
Yeah, you only get one. Sorry.
Yes.
All right, well, Bloodless then. Sorry, Carbosa. Now that I remember your name,
Carbos. Oh wow. Yeah. For familiars, like it seems like they really want you to think that that Silver Knight is just like the strongest familiar in the game, right?
Mhm.
Because he's the only one that you have to unlock via like one of those. I don't even know what to call it, like
Those
a
big
torch.
crystals.
Yeah, like a crystal holder.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does kind of lead you to think
So
that they're
they're
stronger.
like you. I only found like 3 of them, so that's like the only way to get their shards. So I found out that like my Silver Knight was just not cutting it very far, like probably even halfway into the game, and I switched to entirely the Dola hammers,
Oh my god.
and I was just getting obsessed with it. I was like, wow, this is truly the best familiar. I did pretty much a Dola hammer build, honestly, by the end of the game.
How do you build around Dula Hammer?
Well, I don't know if you guys used them a lot, but if you get more shards or if you upgrade it more, you get more heads, up to 5.
Yeah.
So then, and I was talking about it originally, like when I had just the first one, I was like, this is like the worst thing ever. All it does is like bump its head into an enemy every like 10 seconds. But then, when you get 5 of those heads, you're like dealing massive critical damage to enemies every like 2 seconds, and you're just doing it hands free. I would just walk into a room and just let my Dulla hammers clear everything for me, and then just come back to my computer like in like
You
20
walked
seconds.
away from your computer.
Yeah, I would get up from my computer and I would go and I would grab some coffee, grab a LaCroix or something, and then I would come back and the room would be clear and I would jump over all the puzzles.
They didn't. I thought they just wrapped around your character. Did they wander around the screen? I don't remember.
They would go pretty far for me. I mean, like really far. Like they would hit enemies that I couldn't even see on my screen.
I'd swap to them sometimes, but I guess I didn't know the intricacies, and that's the benefit of
And
remaining the
I'm
Dula
guessing their critical hit chance scaled off of my critical hit chance.
Yeah, probably.
So I just equipped all those critical rings, and I'm not sure how the scaling worked in general, so I would just go crit, because you can never have too much crit.
Yeah, I don't
And
know the scaling at
my
all.
Dullahammers, man, I really was fond of them, even though I was talking smack about them at first. I really ended up liking the Dullahammers a lot by the end, just because they would be critting enemies for like 100 damage like every 2 seconds, and it was crazy.
I think that the Bloodbringer, the sword, was
Oh,
the first one that I ended up getting.
yep.
So that was the one that I probably saw the most, and it also had the interesting effect. He was kind of lame, and that he didn't do much. He was really slow, and he would make this annoying grunting noise. But he gave you a one-handed sword in your inventory that would get stronger and more intricately detailed as the Bloodbringer himself would get more intricately detailed from leveling
Yeah.
up, from just using him. And it ended up
Yeah, I
being
thought
one of
that
the
it
better
was.
swords in the game.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that your familiars actually leveled up totally separate from you too.
Yeah,
It wasn't just based on you. Like they had, like they, unlike the other shards, they had like ranks. Then they had, number of shards, and then they also had levels, which can go up to like 99.
yeah, I didn't get anywhere near that with any
Yeah,
familiar.
no, me neither. But yeah, that Bloodbringer sword, it never quite was. I started farming with Bloodbringer just to level him up. Like after a while, and I got my sword pretty high, but it just never was quite able to keep up with some of the other swords that I was getting.
I see.
But I'm imagining like if you got him up to like level 99, I bet that sword would be like so strong.
Yeah, it
And
didn't
and
beat the
I
best sword in the game that I crafted at you like as
Ooh,
much as I played the game, but I didn't 100% use Bloodbringer to level him up.
yeah. Yeah, what did you guys what was your favorite weapon in the game?
Katana.
Mm,
I'm a
Katana.
huge weeb, and it was cool having all those techniques overlap. You could learn them and then equip the next katana. I don't know if that was how it was for every weapon, but
no, Katana
katana.
got big favoritism, so
Yeah, well, it's because weebs, man. So I learned all the techniques, and it was really fun.
hmm,
All right.
I think
And their hit radius was really good. I
Yeah, they did have a huge hit radius.
They'd hit like the toads when you were just standing there. They would hit the toads.
Because it
I
was like
remember
a
that was
lower
they
strike.
hit the
yeah. It was
toads,
like
and
Yes.
that's why Katana.
that's why katana, because I switched to a sword and was trying to hit the toads. Nope. So
Nope.
I
Can't hit the
switched back to
toads.
katana, and I was like, this is it. This is my one. This is my weapon.
Yeah, regular swords had like you could cut diagonally, and I kept thinking that Katana could do that too, but it couldn't. It just it was wider, and that was its
Yep,
benefit.
same. Same. I think only swords had that option.
Yeah, they did, and it was honestly it just kept fucking me up in the game. There was a bit of sensitivity towards the game just being like straight down on the control stick. Well, if you use the control stick, you could use the D-pad obviously, but if you just use the stick, you would really easily get into the sideways motion. So sometimes I would just want to crouch and just attack straight ahead, and if I had a sword, I would do the diagonal swipe for no reason, and it would just mess me up all the time.
Yeah, I remember similar things happening too for me, especially while crouched. It would just totally screw up with whatever I was trying to cut up. It would just basically want to cut the other way.
I
But yeah, I think yeah, I ended up using swords pretty much exclusively though, despite their shortcomings with that diagonal slash.
Yeah, I didn't think they were
Yeah, I
that
think
bad.
I ended up using swords almost exclusively just because of high attack speed, high damage, just so powerful, like attacking so fast.
You get that sword
And with
expertise at the start of the game too, in like the first room,
yeah,
one of the
that's
first
true.
rooms.
Yep. Yeah,
I,
one of like the first enemy types. I think is those like lion guys that tumble around.
hmm
They'll slash at you then tumble, and I think those guys give sword expertise.
Yeah,
shards.
they're really proficient with their own swords, so they drop sword expertise. They're
Yeah,
just
they
falling
Yeah,
swing
away.
they
and miss and fall over on the ground, and then I cerulean splash them to death.
yeah.
Gracious death given to them.
Yeah, it's about all they deserve, honestly. And they'll be right back the second you walk out of the room. The second
Yeah.
you turn your back, they're already back and ready to get clobbered again.
Ready to be splashed once more.
Yes.
I don't
But
think
other
the
than
swords were
other
bad
than
at all.
oh,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that Katana Boy, you dismissing swords, not really fair. You didn't use them enough. They're
I don't
good.
give a
They're
shit.
probably better than Katana, really.
I beat the game with Katana, had no problems. Over and
Well,
out.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the whole dev team was giving you a bit of leeway there, giving you 600 techniques to use with the Katana. And
Oh my god.
it's kind of
right?
like a
Then
crutch if you
swords-
think about it.
So then swords kind of suck because they don't have all the technique overlap like katanas do.
They have a few. They have a few, but they definitely
yeah, one or two.
Like whip
Sure.
and gun just got shafted. They get one technique. They
Whip
clearly
I felt bad for because Whip seems to be the Vania staple. You know, it's
Yes.
so iconic, and then I tried it out, and it just felt so bad. Didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
It was
Not as
slow.
much range as you would think, and then also just like slow attack speed.
Yep.
Yeah, that whole animation's crippling.
Like I don't see what the allure is unless there's some insane techniques out there for whip, then I don't know.
Surely.
I don't know what
Surely
the
there
barrier would
are.
I tried to play with whip a lot when I did like a new game plus. I specifically went out of my way to use the whip a lot, and yeah, it just felt bad. I don't know. It was so awkward to use even with like the max attack speed you could get for it. There's something about the startup on the animation that just made it like, why wouldn't you just, I don't know, use anything else?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
You
like-
could spam that critical technique with it. It was about the only thing I could think of. But yeah, it wasn't really weird coming from Castlevania. That whips seemed weirdly
Maybe
bad.
that's Iga himself spitting on Castlevania and starting a new superior series with katanas leading the fray, being the new weapon of choice, the new iconic
Yep.
weapon.
With Zangetsu in the game,
Zangetsu.
you would definitely think that.
The most important character,
Weeaboo.
Get
Weeaboo
is,
Snake.
yeah.
Yeah.
I titled him Weeaboo Solid Snake in my notes here.
Yeah. You got a lot
Yeah,
of
that's a
screen
great
time.
way to put him. Yeah, he's like just so strong. He's just doing all the hard work for Miriam the whole time. Miriam just barely manages to squeak by. Zangetsu's already done everything.
I just love in the beginning every time you encounter him, he runs away from you. Like an embarrassed schoolgirl. And I'm like, dude, Zangetsu is such a beta. He runs away from girls. It's pathetic.
Oh my god.
Yep.
But
But,
every time
you know.
he says he's so powerful. He's like,
Yeah.
I could crush you, and then he runs away.
Yep.
That's so hilarious. Oh my god, dude. Like Zangetsu. Yeah, there's just this one moment with Zangetsu where he lassos the train with his grappling hook. And he kind of just scoops Miriam up into his arms.
Okay, let's talk about this. That's a great segue here because what the fuck was that whole thing with the train? It happened so fast that I thought I skipped something. Like,
Yeah.
and then like, okay, because you go up to the train and then Zangetsu's there and they're like, we got to board this train. And then all of a sudden the train's it's leaving so fast and he's like, whoosh, throws this whip and it looks fucked up because let's be honest here. These cutscenes are kind of PS2 looking ass cutscenes.
Yeah.
Like everything in cutscenes and talking animations is really janky and pretty shitty, which is kind of surprising. But the story isn't really the main thing, I guess, but it's just still like kind of distracting for the most part.
Yeah.
But then you're whipped onto the train and all of a sudden there's a time limit and they're like, we gotta go, and I'm like, what the fuck is what's going on?
Yeah, like, what-
Nothing was clarified at all with that train, and then they just run to the front and kill like a coal monster, and that's it.
I think
What was that?
I think that was the hype train.
That was the hype train
You
heading to
killed the hype
Iga's
train.
Iga's mansion.
Yes.
I don't know. That's one of the weirdest things to me about the game is the disparity between the combat animations are really good and the voice work. Like everyone's voice acting was really good.
I was
Like, it
surprised by how good the voice acting
Oh,
was.
Yeah,
How
all the
about
voices
what-
were good, and then
what was that?
everything else sucked.
What was
It's
that
weird.
vampire?
Oh,
OD.
The
D-O?
book. Yeah,
O-D?
D O
D-O?
Orlok
D O
Dracul.
D.
Yeah, he was cool.
He was cool. His voice, I remember, was very cool. He had the coolest
You
voice.
want to
in
know
my
something
opinion.
cool about that?
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so OD Orlok Dracul. I'm not sure what that whole name is supposed to mean, but you run into him and he looks like Alucard from Symphony of the Night. If there aren't
Yeah.
enough references already to that game, there's way more that I could bring up. But he looks like Alucard, and he's voiced by the guy who did Alucard.
Oh, sick.
Whoa.
That's really cool.
Wow, Orlok Dracul. Yeah, I wonder what that name. It's so weird.
Let's give it all to Kiowa, huh?
Yeah,
Let's give it
yeah.
all to Kiowa.
Okay, so I'll give you the big reveal, but the first thing that I thought when I saw him was obviously in my mind I'm like, this is Alucard, or it's supposed to be like the spiritual successor to Alucard. And the thing about Alucard is his name backwards was Dracula. He's the
Yeah.
son of Dracula in that game. So I'm like, what does Orlok Dracul backwards mean? And it's just nonsense. And I didn't put two and two together. But Jade.
But guess what? OD is backwards.
D O.
Dio. And guess what else is crazy? The super secret boss fight we're talking about is against OD.
Really?
And guess what else? He has a fucking time stop thing, just like our boy Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Whoa.
And, backwards, OD's Dio. It's Dio.
It's so layered, and I wonder how much of that is intentional. But you got to think probably the whole thing is intentional. Wow. Did you
Yeah.
encounter
That's crazy.
that? Did you encounter that fight, Kiowa?
I did not encounter that fight. When does he want to fight you?
It's so weird, and it's funny. I think I was streaming the game to a few people at the time, near the end of the game, and when there's an ice cavern is the last area,
Yup.
and I'm like, all right, I gotta go make a pit stop. So I go back to the library where OT is, where he gives you the books, and he's like, oh hey, I have a new book, and it gives you, I forget what it gives you, the effects of a few other books, so it's pretty good, and you can take that book. I don't know what the requirement is to make it show up at all. Do you know, Jade? I don't know.
No.
It just
Maybe it's just
shows up.
advancement. Like you have to advance in the story to a certain point or something.
Yeah, he unlocks a couple of books, but every time you take a book, he says make sure to return it, which is just like a gamey thing. Like of course it'll be returned. But if you take this specific book and you go back to just this random room that was empty before, you might have noticed it was suspiciously empty. And you have
Okay.
this book, he just appears and says, hey, fuck you, you're supposed to bring books back to the library, time to die.
What? Oh
Yeah.
my god.
It's
That's
pretty funny.
hilarious. What the hell?
He's
It's
like, you
just-
deserve a fate worse than death. He's like so pissed that you didn't turn his books back.
And you've been to the area before, that area in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah, like,
Oh my god. I just realized with the castle gone and OD gone with it, I never returned that book that I had in my inventory.
You had
I
a
think
few
it's
books.
pretty funny too, because
That's going to be where the next game picks up, is he's going to be coming back trying to get that book from you, or get revenge on you for not
that's
turning the
Ritual
book
of the Night 2.
Ritual of the Night 2, Overdue.
Overdue OD, dude. Hell yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe that's the
Um,
whole thing.
It's funny, after you beat him, he wears silly joke glasses to show his absolute like patheticness towards you, to show that you're dominant, that he's a joke to you.
really? Oh
Yeah,
my
it's pretty
gosh,
good.
I missed all this content. Look at that. I just missed this whole exchange.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing about these Castlevania games. It's so fucking obtuse. There's no telling. There's so many different times
Oh
where
yeah, I feel
progression
where we're
is
going.
just lost.
Like speaking of the OD in the train, who could have known that you have to go to OD after
The-
you
Here's-
get your picture taken?
This is the big thing with these games, because at least this is my opinion. This is what happened to me, okay?
Okay.
every time I would be off exploring something and I'd make a pit stop back at Arventville or whatever, she would be giving me a hint. Dominique would be like, hey, this, Zangetsu left this cryptic poetry about a fiery zone. And I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck, where is a fiery zone?
Yeah.
I haven't been to one. And it seemed like the hints were always way before where I was currently going or what I had on my mind to go do.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that Dominique did say, oh, maybe the vampire in the castle knows something about pass cards to get onto a train. But it was so like, everything is placed just so strangely. And it's just really weird because the progression in the games is it's pretty varied. I mean, you could go be doing something completely different, not even progressing the main story. And then for some reason you'll be getting a hint being like, hey, do this in this forbidden gospel cathedral. And I'm like, what, where? That, I think the biggest problem with that is that there's no way to check any of that afterwards. And there's no way to pull up her dialogue again to be like, where was I supposed to go? And there's no way to check back. There's no journal that says current goal is to go do this.
Yeah, they leave it up to you. Like, they respect your intelligence to a degree, but then they have these obtuse puzzles with one hint, and if you miss it, it's just gone.
Yeah. And then there's times there's no hints. Mm-hmm. And times that things don't even make fucking sense. And I just wonder if I didn't, I caved and asked my boy Cole what to do. I'm sure you had the same thing, Kiowa, when you get inverse.
Oh, yeah, I remember that Dominic did mention that thing about the inverse. Like
you can get to new places.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Exactly.
But that doesn't say shit about Aegis armor being like...
Yep.
And that's another thing, is the stupid-ass Aegis armor. There's no other armor with any effects that mitigate anything else. So if you weren't reading the descriptions of the armor, there's no way to know that it could, prevent... Why would you read effects? It's just flavor text for everything other than the Aegis armor, and I guess that Valkyrie one that changes your appearance, and that's it. Yeah. It's just flavor text for everything.
Well, there was the gunman's scarf, which makes you fire your gun faster.
Yeah, but that's in the accessories.
Yeah, you're right. That is
accessories are all about that stuff, but the armor, it isn't generally. There's fucking 20 pieces of armor, and there's just this one piece that you have to get in the tower after getting inverse to get through the fucking spike wall that Zangetsu set up to fuck you over.
Yeah. And the way that it was placed seems like it was deliberately so far away and just so out of normal reach.
Yeah.
That they were almost hiding it.
It's in a really weird spot for being something required. I'm pretty sure it's totally required. If you get past it without that, you're cheesing the game.
Is the obtuseness like this? Is that a Metroidvania thing? I know the progression in Hollow Knight. Look, sorry, Hollow Knight's kind of my only point of reference here. But and it might just be pulling at straws, but the progression in Hollow Knight seemed like you could keep advancing through multiple areas, with your abilities. But it seems like in this game, it just felt like I needed one ability to get through a specific spot, and that was it. Everything else, I just don't know about this. All the weird requirements of places to go. Is that a Metroidvania thing, it being so obtuse and not telling you stuff like the Aegis armor and stuff like the photo ID? What is that all about?
I think that some of that is mostly just up to Bloodstained having so many different progression requirements, and they're not overly stated. Like in Hollow Knight, there's only a few upgrades you get, and when you get them, it's like a big moment and your brain clicks. You instantly know, okay, I can use this to get to a bunch of different places. But there are many different times in Bloodstained where you pick up something kind of inane, and I think at least one point, the water spray, it's just another shard, like all the other
Yes,
shards you
that's
get.
that was
And you
another
need that.
point.
You need that to progress. So there's just too many of them, and they can't spell it out, or they don't want to spell it out to you every single time. So when they try to vary it, sometimes it just comes off as really strange. I think that the more obtuse things are usually legendary when it comes to progression in these Metroidvanias.
Legendary, how do you mean?
More like maybe the better word would be notorious, such as Super Metroid has a puzzle that's only barely foreshadowed by some environmental storytelling, where you can use a bomb to blow up like a pipe that you're walking through in an underwater area, but you can never do that otherwise. Like, you normally are hitting doors or blocks, but this time it's like you're blowing up an entire piece of scenery, and this is an older game, so that comes off kind of out of nowhere to a lot of people, I think, because you can look, that's usually a point where people get really lost in the game. And Bloodstained just has a number of those.
I mean, I think obviously getting the shards and stuff to progress is one thing. That's fine. Well, I mean the movement shards, like the stupid reflector ray and shit like that. But this aqua shard, there's no indication, that you can put it to that use. I mean, you're probably testing it underwater, but
I think it says in the description at the very least. Like, that one's easier to understand.
Okay, yeah. I guess just knowing that you have to kill the guy who has it. Isn't it the horse?
It's not the horse. It's one of those flopping things. One of those weird. It's like a reskin of the guy that gives you Cerulean Splash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just was like, if you were to go through an area and not have killed those dudes and they didn't drop a shard, like, what the fuck would you do?
Yeah. They might just give it to you automatically, but I'm not sure about that.
I guess you have to kill one. Maybe you're doing a pacifist run and you don't kill one, and then what?
Yeah, that's the way they shut down all the pacifist runs. That's the hard wall for pacifism.
I think the splash is more, or not the splash, but the water spray is a little easier to understand, since you want to know what this shard does when you equip it. So you read that, and that one's more logical.
The Aegis armor.
The Aegis armor is a little less defensible.
There's no description of an armor when you pick it up. There's nothing that you have to go into your inventory and look at it. And it's just so weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and with that spikes area that you need the Aegis armor for, like, I literally, I just went up there and I, like, used food and stuff to just tank the spikes.
Oh, you just got through it like that.
Through it. Yep, and I know that when you get hit with spikes, you go backwards, so I just turned myself around and basically propelled myself down by just damaging myself on the spikes. Made it all the way up to the top, but then you can't cast that masterwork or that craftwork hand thing to pick up those little, like, iron maidens. So then I was stuck up there multiple times. Once before I had the invert spell. Another time before I had the Aegis armor, because you need that to move the craftwork thing, or those Iron Maidens. Otherwise, you can't go further. But I think it would be cool if they could make it that you could get through in the way that I was trying it, like brute forcing your way through without Aegis armor.
That's just one weird point of progression in the game, I think. Yeah, because I guess it would be pretty understandable that you would try. Like, you could get through with food, because food's just, Breath of the Wild style overpowered, but...
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's cool that you tried it out, but it really sucks that you were met with that impassable, thing.
Almost an Aegis stopping me from advancing.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
when I was hunting around with Inverse, I went to explore that spot, but I spent like half an hour not realizing I could even get to that spot where that armor is, because I kept landing on the when I would invert and you flip everything upside down, and I would land on that platform, but the camera didn't pan down any further to show me there was something there. So I'm like, oh, this is the top of the map. There's nothing up here. And I just kept missing it. But then when I picked it up, I was reading the flavor text, and I, luckily I knew where to go as soon as I got, and I knew it was important. But it's so easily understandable how it would be missed first and foremost, and how you wouldn't, even if you had it, you wouldn't realize how important it is.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue, in my opinion, is that it could have been mitigated by maybe adding more armor with weird effects like that, like maybe an armor that prevents you from getting poisoned, or an armor that prevents status effects or something like that. If there was anything else like that in the armor section, then I think it would be just slightly more forgivable. But otherwise, it's really super lame.
Well, what about the other progression? I'm sure you guys both hated the when you have to bring the pass plate, I think, to OD to get onto the train.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was that's just weird. All that stuff is weird. Like,
that was another moment for me when I just like had no clue what to do, and I ended up asking you guys just because I was like so stuck. I couldn't see like a physical point of advancement, and it turns out it was just like the weirdest thing, that if you miss like one of Dominique's like recommendations from like several days ago,
yeah,
then you know you just don't know what to do at that point.
That's the most egregious thing too, is you go to Arventville, you're like, I'm gonna stock up on potions. And what do you do when you talk to a shopkeeper in any other game? You fucking mash X because you don't want to see them go, what are you buying? You know, you just want to skip right by it.
And they have that exact thing in the game. So, and there's a skip button. You don't even have to mash it. You press that as soon as you start talking to them, and it just skips the whole thing. And I did that every time.
So it's kind of like, why have her give these hints one time and have her be the fucking shopkeeper of the game? And like, it's just like, and then she can't say anything else.
Yeah, maybe they should have. It sounds like they should have given you like a journal entry when you heard her say that. Yeah. But I don't think it gave you anything like that.
They have a whole fucking compendium. I don't know why. It seems so easy. There's quests in there, and the quests track on the mini-map, but they couldn't give you the hints? I skipped every hint in the game, I think, on accident.
Yeah. And this makes me, this is a conspiracy that I've been thinking about. What if the guy made the game to just be as obtuse and confusing as possible, so that people on the, you know, people playing it would be stuck for as long as possible, and that there could be like a 2-week gap or something where no one knew how to beat the game because it was just like no one knew how to advance, and he was maybe trying to make it some sort of mystery platformer that the whole world would have to work on together to try to find out how to get the Aegis armor and advance the entire plot of the game.
That would be very, very cool if that were the case, but just the fact that the hints even exist is kind of like counterproductive to that cause.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just if she would repeat, like if the game obviously knows where you are, so why she should just repeat like the dialogue. Isn't there a talk option? There's not a talk option, is there?
No, I don't think so.
Other than the interface with their shop, I don't think there's
it's just
an expressed talk option.
So if they're like, oh, the game knows that you haven't got the double jump, then they'll tell you like, hey, she'll just say that shit over and over and over again. And then I don't know. There's got to be some way to solve that problem because it's such a big one.
Yeah, Kai was right on the compendium. That's definitely the most obvious and easy way.
Yeah, they track side quests, so why don't they track the main quest? I should head here.
And speaking of tracking, how about those, what were they called? Like techniques, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was up with the techniques? Like, I don't understand why when you unlock a technique, like from a bookshelf, you read the book and you unlock a technique. I don't understand why that isn't just like archived like permanently in your like techniques area. Instead, you have to actually use the ability first on the weapon that you get, right? Or is there a note that's made in the logbooks about those techniques?
There is a recording, an exact copy of what you read on the bookshelf, but it's in a different spot. Like, it's just an extra step to record it in the actual techniques menu. And I wouldn't say that's a super major issue because they give you that information in the journal, but they just make you jump through one hoop for no reason, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that it definitely threw me off, and I was just like, I never really knew to look there for my additional techniques. I would just go straight to the techniques window and I'd be like, where are all of my techniques?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable issue to have. I had to reference that other menu where the book version of it is many times to try and just figure out, okay, what weapon, because they specifically require you to use it on a specific weapon to master it or even record it in the thing. So I'd have to check it so many times to make sure I had the weapon that I wanted to try and use.
Yeah. Yep, I don't know. It seems like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a slightly weird interface, but I guess this is like a revival in the series. Like, and they're just trying, and they're just getting this game like kind of off the ground.
Yeah, they're
pretty
still
much.
working out the
So,
kinks. They're working out the kinks.
Yeah, I guess I can give them a pass on some of the interface issues, but that that Aegis armor was unforgivable.
Yeah, that's my biggest hang up on the progression of the game for sure.
I mean, I would tell you, I thought it was reasonable to be reading the items because they're not Dark Souls like, but the fact that I'm 2-1 here tells me that there's probably an issue in clarity.
Man, that's like the opposite for me. Like, I wasn't reading the items because they didn't contain any cool information. It was just like a breastplate of silver that can repel bullets or something. And I was just like, fucking so cookie cutter. It's not like Monster Hunter. There's no cool, crazy weapon descriptions about things cutting the fucking world in half and stuff. Like, it's just like, there's nothing cool. I was like, I don't need to read these because they're just basic ass things.
Yeah, I think they wanted the location to clue you in, but it doesn't because there's so many other items in weird locations too that are just inane. And there were hats. There were a couple hats maybe, and definitely the accessories. I think I just kept seeing items as accessories and checking, and yeah, it's more often than not that the regular armor you would equip would do nothing that wasn't just listed in big graphics and stats.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, accessories, I definitely read those, because it's a whole different... Those are meant to tailor to certain abilities and have certain effects. Whereas armor didn't throughout the whole game except for Aegis armor, which is the big problem. Like, if they did, then it wouldn't have been an issue at all. But
my biggest hang up outside of that OD with the pass plate and stuff, which was, again, it was just another time where you had to do one extra step. They did make it a big thing. I think it's pretty memorable when you sit down in the chair in the shop and Dominique tells you, oh yeah, we need some mercury or whatever it was to get this picture thing working. And that was whatever. But I remember specifically when I picked the item up that she needed, I was like, okay, I'll go back there and get my picture taken. And I thought that maybe you'd get an actual picture of your character or something to show off how you could design them. But instead it was like a key item in your inventory, right?
Yeah.
So that told me, okay, it's for progression. And I look at the whole map, like, where haven't I explored? And the only spot is the train station. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. You get a picture as like an ID for a train.
Mm-hmm.
But then you need to go to OD actually to turn it into a passport for the train. So you need an item to get an item to get to the train.
I think I did run all the way over to the train zone and then with my picture and just hoped. Because I didn't know. I was like, this is the only possible thing I can do.
Yep, I made it over to the train zone as well with only the picture in my inventory and had to go back to OD first before I could.
So
we all made the same exact thing.
Why? Why do they do that? Why do they give you one extra step to go? Like, the only thing I can think of is they're trying to tell you, oh, if you go back to OD, sometimes he'll have new books or he'll let you take out more books. But that's such a weak and lame-ass excuse if that's the case, and I don't know. I just stumbled. I just went back to him eventually after like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of running around trying to figure out what to do next.
It's like they're trying to just... It's almost like they were trying too hard to make it a puzzle game.
Yeah, some of the
that
stuff
it just didn't... Like, they added unnecessary steps to the point where the game just wasn't flowing like it should have.
It's moon logic.
It is a little bit. I'd say that the other Castlevania games, because I think a lot of the things in this game are just supposed to be an homage to Castlevania. And those games usually had ways to reach certain areas, secret areas, different endings through some more cryptic stuff that you were supposed to read into. And they just kind of incorporated that into the main progression path here, even really early on. And it
shit.
It did feel
wrong,
off.
Then we were wrong.
What were we wrong about? What were we wrong about?
We were wrong about this stuff being obtuse because I don't have any experience in Castlevania games.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my fault. Maybe, you're supposed to read all the items that you pick up. I just didn't. Maybe it's just, chalk it up to my first, mainline, quote-unquote, Castlevania game, except for the Aegis armor, because fuck that.
Yeah,
That's
to be
dumb
fair,
as
I
hell.
can't think of an example in the other Castlevanias I've played off the top of my head where it was an item like that you needed. It's usually something that goes in your key items or it's a specific spell.
Mm-hmm.
And those are obviously going to draw your attention more than weird, whatever, the Aegis armor, like regular equipment, everyday run-of-the-mill stuff.
Speaking of stupid shards required for progression, all right?
I've been waiting for this.
This also goes back to the shortcuts predicament.
Okay.
Okay? Fuck. And I mean fuck. I hate this so much. I hate that there are shards required to move around to get through walls or to get through little cracks on so many different levels. On so many fucking different levels. I hate this so much.
Yep.
I hate the fact that you have to switch shortcuts. You have to have a shortcut that's progression to get past walls shortcut. To have this thing equipped to get through a tiny little crack. And that's the stupid thing again, because guess what? You start off with reflector beam, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because it can in the beginning it can kind of help you even double jump farther up. So it's kind of cool in that respect. But the fact that you need to use it to get through little tiny cracks, and then later you get teleport, which no need for a reflector beam anymore. I can just teleport through any wall.
Yep.
And the fact that like all this stuff, you're running around, there's like hardly any puzzles. It's such a brain dead thing. You come up to a wall and you go, I have to teleport through this. And then you teleport through it, and then you switch back to your main thing. And it's just such a fucking drag. It slows the pacing down so much. And this is another thing. The only thing required with those shards is the movement aspect, going through a wall or going through a crack. But in the very beginning of the game, you use a fire one to ignite a cannon to shoot a wall. And there's never anything else like that.
Yeah.
There's no other puzzles with shards other than moving through a fucking wall. And it's like, it's the biggest drag to stop everything and switch. Cole was watching me stream, and I would switch, start the animation, and then instantly switch back even before I was done getting to the other side because I was just it's so dumb.
I'd say the only other instance of a shard being used more contextually, like the fireball, is maybe blood steal.
Oh, yeah, stealing
And
the
that's
blood
like
from
the only other
well.
time.
Yeah, I guess that could almost be another. Well, the well is such a place of interest right away.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like blood all over, and you're like, whoa, what's happened here? And then you can kind of go into a little tiny crack, a hole, and sink into the blood, and you're like, oh, I can't go down. What's going on? And then you get the blood steal thing, so it's kind of like easy. But I could see that being another progression block for people being like, how the fuck what do I do now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
Sucking
kill
up
a
the blood.
boss for it, so it should kind of draw your attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another time where maybe you wouldn't put two and two together immediately. But I agree when it comes to the movement shards, and I know how layered your complaint with it is, but for me it's additionally complicated because they put all of the useful shards on your manipulative slot where you can aim where you want to go.
Yep.
Because you've got like 3 different or 4 different types of shards, but like all the good ones are on manipulate, including the ones for the puzzles.
Yeah.
Well, the movement ones.
Oh,
So
Why is the hand one a manipulate one? Because when you're holding things in the air, you can't even move them around. You just
Yeah.
hold it to one side. It's so fucking stupid. The hand one is another one that I hate so much.
Yep, just having the need for that one like is so annoying that you have to even carry it around because it really doesn't do anything for you. I mean, I guess you could probably try to use it offensively, but it would probably be like one of the worst abilities. Like, oh, once you get that dash shard though, where you're just sprinting everywhere so
Yeah.
fast, that's like
Yeah.
the best feeling ever after running
See-
so slowly through the game forever.
I can forgive that one. I can totally forgive the existence of that one taking a slot just because it's so good.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
other thing is that when you have invert, but then when you get that super high jump, you don't need invert anymore.
Yeah,
It's like, what's
and you can get it really, really fast after you get invert. You get the Aegis armor with invert, and then you can probably get up to that spike room without invert, right? Or can't you? I think you can.
Wait, super
Either way,
high jump. What are you talking?
yeah, it's optional, but you can get if you have. I think you need invert as the prereq, and then you get a bovine plume from a certain enemy in the Oriental lab.
Okay.
And you can combine those two at the Alchemist for an optional passive shard that lets you just. It's the high jump from Symphony of the Night. You just press up on a button and you, for free, unlimited times, as many times as you want, you can just jump super, super high, like above the length of a normal room.
Yeah.
And so you don't need invert because you can just jump normally, and invert makes you sick and has a button input anyway.
Yeah, I would always do invert and basically just fly around to wherever I needed to go by just reversing and re-reversing gravity to just hover around.
You were missing
rooms.
out big time then because it makes me sick watching the room turn over, and I would do it on accident all the time too.
Yeah.
God.
What would
damn.
happen to me is I would be trying to invert it, but I would just, screw up the controls to do it.
Yep.
Like I'm trying to dodge an enemy attack by going onto the ceiling, and then I'm trying to do invert in a pinch, and I just can't get the thing off, and I'm like, just like teabagging and then like attacking or something, just mashing controls, floundering around, trying to invert gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely, some of the older Metroidvanias had clunkier, like this, the version of high jump in Bloodstained is like disgustingly easy to perform, and you can do it infinitely. Whereas I think the high jump in Symphony of the Night required the invert button input, and you had to do it over and over. So sometimes it would be tough. Or in Super Metroid, there's a wall jump. I don't remember if it's required to progress, and the timing is so strict on it that it would be extremely difficult to perform. So Bloodstained makes this advancement where these things are easier to do, but then they shove them down your throat and force you to do them, and it just becomes an annoyance. It felt like mastery in these other older games, and so this newer game, I would think, would find an even better way to implement them, but instead it's so arbitrary feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree that I really hate all of these different moves you get, and some of them you just throw away right away. You don't need them.
Yeah. It just made me, like, when I'm backtracking, when you're backtracking through an area trying to farm something or trying to get somewhere to check out if that's maybe the place to go, looking for the Aegis armor that you don't even know is the solution. You know what I mean?
And you
you're
don't
just
even
walking
know
around.
that it's there. There's no hint
Yeah,
telling you that
exactly.
it's there either.
You don't know where you're supposed to go. You're backtracking and you're like, I got to check this area out. Maybe I missed something. And then you come up to one of those tiny little cracks and you're like, I just want to go here and check. That's all I want. But now they're making me fucking swap to this skill to get through this little crack. It's, there's no challenge to it. There's nothing, the synapses don't even need to fire in your brain to like realize how to get through that.
Reflector Ray had some cool things too. Like you said, you can use it early on with double jump and get like additional height, and I feel like I sequence broke a couple times with that or got stuff early, and it was cool and fun. And then they had these reflector plates, but they didn't do anything with them. There were no puzzles with it.
Yeah.
They just existed for to make the gaps look more complicated or something, or just so you aim it properly. But it was just a waste of time.
Yeah, like
Big time.
I remember I was streaming the game once, and you were saying that to me. Like I was trying to like aim some jump with the reflector plates, and you just said like you don't even need to bounce off those plates. You can just use the ray to go straight into the destination that you need to go. So I was just like, oh, okay, and then I just did it. But yeah, you don't even need reflector ray. That teleport ability, you get so late in the game. And I can't remember, many locations in the game where you would need to like jump in between walls like that.
Yeah, I mean,
At least in what I saw. So
There was that and some secrets in one room, I think, of the Oriental lab, and I don't remember any other.
You had to get that one
that
guy who keeps
it.
getting lost.
Yeah.
You had to get him.
Beyond that, it's just like a upgrade, I guess, to the reflector ray.
Yep.
In either way, it takes up a slot on your on your build to solve puzzles if that's the best way you want to put it. And yeah, it cuts down on your shortcuts too. It's like a Pokemon HM,
Exactly.
It's like having strength or a HM slave.
That's probably honestly the best equivalent.
Yep.
Point, because just like they even mitigated it though in later Pokemon games where you approach the tree that you need to cut and it'll go, do you want to cut this? Yes, but you still need a Pokemon with fucking the thing equipped, which is just what they're HMs, right? HMs.
Yeah, I think so.
There's the classic phrase, this is my HM whore Pokemon. They could just equip the most HMs on there. Then you just have it in your 6th slot and you never use it other than to just swim up a fucking waterfall. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I always called them worker class Pokemon.
Yeah, like a Machop or whatever is a worker class Pokemon, that Timber. These guys just do menial labor for us superior humans.
And the fact that they cut down on all the shortcuts. I don't know why they let you have 8 shortcuts, but they only give you 5 if you find them all in one playthrough, and then they have the audacity to cut one down further if you want to have like any sanity left to quickly switch to these. So it's almost like you're starting off with a 4 or a 5 Pokemon team, and then one of them also has to be like an HM slave.
Yeah, like you were saying that, like, I found myself like not able to have like the damage abilities that I wanted to in all of my slots at one point, because I think I only had 3. Like I might have missed one of those like crucial shortcut shards, and I might have just been handicapped the whole time playing through it. I'll never know, but basically, I just found myself when I only had 3. Like I had one that was the designated like movement and motion like sort of shortcut, and then the other one, I had to have the Aegis on it too to get through stuff. So now already that one can't be my damage class anymore. So then I was left with just one single shortcut shard that was able to do like any substantial damage, and the rest of them, they were just like basically like my movement and like utility shards holders. Otherwise, you would have to go and individually go into your equipment and your shards equipped and just change them out physically every time.
The stuff.
It's the swap problem.
Why they do that.
Yeah,
the swap problem. It's a new
Why would
thing.
they make it optional? I don't understand. Why are they optional when pretty much the only thing it does is cut down on menu time to have these shortcuts? And thank the heavens we got 8 of them, I guess, but really not 8 of them. You can't play with all the weapons easily, because I think for gun I only really played with it once I got something that reduced ammo consumption or something. But I had other builds that I was doing on my other shortcuts, and I feel really, really bad that you didn't find the rest of them, because you were super screwed with only 3 shortcuts total.
It was tough. I eventually found a 4th one, which was very useful, but I never found that 5th one. So
why would they make it optional? We had something like this in the Persona game too. Why is it optional when it feels almost mandatory to having more fun with the game?
Yeah, you absolutely...
Or just unlock them as you progress, right? Doesn't that make way more sense? When you reach a certain threshold, you go back to Johannes and he's like, hey, here's a shortcut shard or something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For sure. It needs to be part of the progression, or you maybe need to start with 2. Maybe you start with 2. And then...
Oh, yeah, you don't even start with any. You just have the one build.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fair because you're learning the game.
Yeah. Maybe it just needs to be... It definitely needs to be tied to progression, not exploration.
Yeah, it almost...
Sure.
It seems like just like kind of like this relic or something that JRPGs love to do. They love to throw in weird little kinks in the system like this where like even just having something as nice as like a utility slot to include, you know, other builds and other shards are even behind like a locked system. So you have to keep playing the game to even, you know, play the game that it was meant to be played with 8 fully unlocked like shortcuts that you could customize. It seems like just such a weird thing to shut out from like access. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean, even just going on to shards, I feel bad that the movement shard takes up another slot, you know? Did you guys ever feel like experimenting with other stuff on that slot?
With that was the directional one was the one I ended up using the most. And that's probably why it frustrated me so much.
The directional, I think, had the most different shards on it, and generally for me, I found them to be the most fun to use. But then the blue ones, I forget what they're called. I think that might have been manipulative. But there was just a couple, maybe a dozen or so of them in the whole game that you would unlock. And some of them were cool. But then at the end of the
cool succubus.
Yeah, you get that one that turns you into that, or there was one that lets you block stuff from the front. I thought that one was really useful. And then you get at the end of the game that running one, lets you run super speed. And at that point, the game feels like slow as hell when you're not running that fast.
You need to.
So why would you ever take it off?
Yeah.
Every time I switched to a shortcut that didn't have that on, I would press that button. And I'm like, why am I not running way fast?
Yeah.
And the whole game fell off.
Yeah, once you unlock that, you just can't go back. You've already been spoiled to what the game could be. So now you're always going to be running, and you better have you better at least have one shortcut with it dedicated to it. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be manually switching every time.
Yeah.
But
I wish that the shards had more. I don't know how it would work with the way that buttons are laid out, at least on a controller, but there's only one of each type you can equip, and it's kind of a pain. At least the shortcuts help let you experiment and play with different... I tried as much as possible to put different things on each different build and not double up, so I could play with stuff. But things like the reflector ray and the run, they just kind of overpowered everything else in specific the reflector in specific instances and the run all the time, and it felt like there wasn't a reason to play with them.
Yeah,
like you can't even do damage with the reflector ray.
Yeah, you say overpowered,
you can, but it sucks.
They don't have any damage.
And it's like the boss who uses it can just fuck you up with it, and then you get it and you do like 7 damage with it. If you could have done any sort of physical thing, it would have been cool to dash through enemies or through attacks or something to do damage. But instead it's just piss.
Yeah, and then the teleport one has actually 0 damage that it does, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably more useful than the reflector ray even.
Yeah, and movement wise, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why
you don't have to aim it, really.
I'm not sure why they chose to make some of like the highest damage shards in the game compete directly with like movement and utility shards that you just have to move around.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you're just
so
like
strange.
You're toying with, well, which would be more useful as I'm going through this run? The ability to like jump out of the range of a bunch of enemies real quick, or just the ability to blast and obliterate them all. But then with the caveat that you could always run into a little crack in the wall that you would be totally unable to get past unless you had that equipped.
Yep. Ick.
I mean, that Y, triangle Y button whatever basic shard that you use the cerulean
Or
splash
the
on.
summon one. I think it's a summon. You conjure.
No, not the summon one.
You conjure the
Oh
cerulean.
yeah, that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
name of it. I mean, to a degree, I think it's funny that you use the same shard throughout the whole game, but then at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, that one had like the lamest stuff on it. I almost never used it.
Yeah, literally the lightning one is the best one. Like,
Yeah, I put the lightning one on, but then I would just want to use all my resources and time casting the directional one because there were so many cool, fun, strong things on it, right?
definitely, yeah. The directional ones were the best.
Yep.
They were the most fun.
So much damage too, and so many places would have like shards unlocked. Or you could easily unlock more shards by just killing like the same enemies over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like get a really, really strong directional ability. Like I used for directional abilities, I used the like arrow one. What's it called? Like True Shot or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one I think we've heard many of us used a lot. It was strong,
Yeah.
easy to use, just
Like
good.
little flying enemies that you can just never get. You can't angularly like attack them with your weapons. But this True Shot 360, just you can shoot them anywhere they are and you deal huge damage. And you have like, I never had like a problem when it came to just running in between, you know, two save points or whatever. I was never like running out of mana from using it too much. I was just like looking for opportunities mainly to use it, I found.
So, okay, this is kind of a little divergence from the topic here, but Kiowa mentioned directional attacks.
Yeah.
Is that not a thing? I remember the very first thing I thought when I opened the game, when I started playing the game, was, I can't just attack upward? Like, is that a Castlevania thing? You can just attack in one direction all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's. I think Hollow Knight might have spoiled you in that.
Yeah,
where
because, bouncing
the
off
combat
enemies.
is totally different in that game, where you are manipulating your one weapon. But the thing for
there's only one
Castlevania
weapon.
and Bloodstained is the way that the weapon attacks varies between types, and that's what is encouraging you to play the game differently
So
or
is
multiple
there one
times.
that attacks upwards? Or do you just always kind of have to jump and attack?
If there's
kind of-
anything,
Yeah, I
it's
guess
probably a
there's
technique.
nothing upwards.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I
the
think that's what
techniques-
shards and techniques were for, is to make up for what your weapon lacked, or just if you wanted to be a caster.
Yeah, that was just initially kind of was the first thing I noticed when I was trying to kill like a bat or something, and I was like,
Yep, you
I
can
can't
always
just attack upwards.
you can always do your downward A move, which would your boot
Your dive kick,
kick, yeah. But that does
Yeah,
like one
right.
damage. What
Yeah.
it really does though is bounce you off the enemy, which is like the most useful thing ever.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
way
yeah.
good.
Get me started on that, why don't you?
Yeah.
Where I kept thinking, I know I've already told this, but I knew there was a dive kick in the game because you can look in the journal and it says something about like how many times you've done it in a row or something. And in Hollow Knight you could bounce off stuff, and I feel like I've played another game with dive kicking off of stuff. I just expected it in the game, but I couldn't do it at the start, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll unlock it at some point and use it to great effect. And you just get it when you unlock double jump. I don't know. I don't think the game tells you. It might if you read the shard, but it says double jump, so I'm like, okay, that's all I need to know. But then you can
Obtuse.
dive kick once you do that, and
Oh.
it opens up so much of the game to learn how to dive kick. You can move around the game way faster, like move tech, by utilizing it. You can get to places you otherwise couldn't before you reach invert and other stuff like that. And it's just fun. It's just kind of weird that it's unlocked in that fashion, I guess.
Yeah.
And you always have to double jump before you use it, so it gets awkward to use it in cramped spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much fun you guys had with the movement tech in that game, but that was honestly, I felt a little spoiled at the end of the game with infinite high jumps running so fast. It felt like I didn't have that fun movement that I had at the beginning of the game in exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not technically proficient enough. Like, I didn't know that was within the bounds of my movement capabilities even. And then when you were like, dude, double jump off that guy to get, or, jump kick off that guy. And I was like, holy shit, what? I can just do this? Like, I didn't know that you can really get to so many areas, like jump kicking off of like lanterns and stuff, and just guys flying around.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool, but once again, yeah, you get a skill to just completely illegitimate. It doesn't matter anymore. Who gives a shit about it once you get the, crazy high jump?
Or I mean, all you really need is invert too. Like
Mm-hmm.
that came pretty early in the game, honestly, and you can just like after that, the whole world is your oyster. And that's like the only way that I was able to get around that area. One of my favorite areas in the game was the area where everything was just bigger.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like what was it called? Like the Hall of
The
Giants
Den of Evil.
or something? Oh, the Den of Evil.
Behemoths.
Isn't it called the
Behemoth.
Den of Evil?
I think it's Behemoths, Den of Behemoths or
Oh,
something like
okay.
that.
Never mind.
Yeah,
I'm
like
thinking of the Bridge of Evil. I don't know.
oh, I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was probably like my favorite area in the game because it was just like
Just a bigger
just
version of the
bigger
garden.
enemies. Yep, bigger version of like the same exact stuff, and that's like probably goes into one of the most interesting things I found about the game was like how they were talking about the castle and how it's like everything was built like it seems like it didn't make sense, like everything was just a little bit off, and like they were explaining like why are ledges too high, why are these things not proper, and then they're like, well, it was literally spawned out of hell, so it's like there's no actual like intent in mind to it. It's just kind of like this amorphous fixture or something.
An
that
amalgam of hellish designs.
exactly. And yeah, and that Hall of Behemoths area just kind of plays into that very well, I think, because it's just the same like kind of area that you've dealt with the whole game, but just like macro, like probably 10 times bigger, if not more, than it was already. And then you have to use every like thing in your abilities now to just like navigate the structure of the castle.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, that
I
is
like
nice
that,
because
yeah.
then at that point you do have a reason to use the jump and the accelerate to get around much faster. Otherwise, it's like, that's cool.
It takes forever, but it harkens back to Inverted Castle. It's the same thing that you're used to, but exploring it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think even Invert was a callback to that. But you don't use Invert to explore in an area in a different way. You just use it to get to where you needed to go next a couple times.
Yeah.
You know, and there's lost potential there. But I think the Den of Behemoths is a cool way to have that same sort of feeling of exploration in a place you're familiar with. Just not in that same way that Invert could have provided.
Exactly. On a kind of another note, do you guys have what was your experience with like slicing the moon? Like, what did you guys think about that at first?
Oh boy, that was one of the two biggest roadblocks for me in terms of progressing the game. And I had to ask somebody else who had already beaten the game about it because it just went over my head at first. I didn't pick up on the clues that you have to slice the moon in the Jeeble boss fight at a specific time with the Zangetsuto. And I don't know, it just flew over my head and I missed it. I killed him too fast in the first boss fight, thought, oh, this is wrong, and then just wandered the castle forever looking for where to go. It was another obtuse progression moment for me.
Okay.
I happened to do it. Cole, I think you were watching me do that, right? When I killed him so fast and I was like, do I have to wait for maybe Gremory to show herself or something? And then I went back and did it again and I did it right away. So it just happened to click for me that that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, I think that you specifically were keyed in on what was supposed to happen, because that's another time where you get an item where the description kind of clues you in, but there's so much other stuff around it that's telling you what to do.
Yeah, like Zangetsu even says, "This is my blade." Isn't it called like? Didn't he refer to it as like the moon cutter or something like that?
Yeah, the description says it cuts the moon.
Yeah.
The blade that will
and
hurt the moon.
He tells you Gremory is going to be near Jeeble. So, like, everything's there. They just don't spell it out for you. And for me, the biggest issue is that it's so easy to kill Jeeble too fast to notice what to do.
There's another check mark for obtuseness.
Yep, the Jeeble, or the Jeeble fight.
What was it for you, Kiowa, since you asked?
It was a weird experience for me. Like, the first time I just went when I got Zangetsuo, I should say. I went in and I just started slicing the moon immediately, and nothing happened. So then I just kept fighting him, and then I was using like a poison dagger at one point, and I started stabbing him up, made sure Giebel was poisoned. Then I saw the moon turn color, and I was like, this is my chance. This is when I was supposed to use it. So I jumped up and I slashed at it, but before I could get my full slash off, Giebel just like died from the poison. So I was just like stuck in mystery mode for even longer, and I tried to fight the boss again finally, and then that's when I finally cut the moon properly.
Oh, you thought he died because you cut the moon?
Yeah, I thought he like died, and I was just very confused because it like happened at the same moment. And I was just like, wait, man. What?
You knew better than either of us what to do initially, but you got misled by something
just
else.
Some crazy
God,
stuff.
that's messed up.
That's so funny.
But
what are the chances that poison would just do the last bit of damage to him right at that moment too? That's such a minute chance.
And I thought, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a different cutscene or something, but then it just gave me game over again, and I was like, what is going on? But I had enough stamina in me to try it one more time, and then it worked. It just worked perfectly that time because he wasn't poisoned. So, but yeah, and then I had enough of a memory of when two of those other red moons were around, and I just took such notice of that moon. I thought that was kind of a cool aspect of how, like, that's what Gremory was hiding in the whole time.
That was actually really well done too, because like I gotta say, we haven't talked about the art style or the graphics or anything yet, but like the castle itself was really cool, and I really liked the atmosphere of the game. Like the clouds rushing by like so fast just gave this like feeling that there was something wrong going on. And I remember that first hallway, I didn't even put two and two, obviously I didn't put two and two together, but that first hallway you see when the moon is so fucking big, I was like, whoa, this place is fucked up, and it's like moving along with you. I was like really anticipating some cool hellish shit, but I guess
that room sticks out a lot.
Yeah, like the atmosphere of that game is very cool, very hellish. I was honestly expecting them to drive like more of like a horror, like jump scare sort of thing home with you. Like, remember,
I was hoping
like
it
when
would get
like
that more hellish. I was just hoping it would get more twisted, but it really kind of stayed the same.
Yeah, like I remember that one room with that painting of that like amorphous man, muscle man with the eye that just kind of followed you around and stuff.
Yeah, and there's nothing about it.
There's nothing about it. Just some weird rooms where you just sit around and you just sit down in chairs and you just look at the art. Like, that's always funny.
Did you guys get the Celeste room?
What?
Did you guys get into Celeste's room?
I did, yeah. I didn't understand what the point of it was, but it was cool atmospheric moment, I guess.
Yeah, if there's a point to it, that's just another one of those. It's a whole room even dedicated to just nothing, I guess. Mm-hmm. You just kind of sit around.
There's a room where you can sit down, and like if you just sit down for a little bit, like a ghost will sit down on the other chair.
Whoa.
And there's like some music box kind of stuff going on, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's not nothing, but it's sort of it's weird in a game of obtuse progression that there are some weird things that have this mystery to them that I don't know if there's an answer to.
Yeah. Definitely.
But I don't want to draw away from your point about the atmosphere, because one of the things I thought was coolest was in the Inferno area, where it kind of feels like the game's getting closer to being done when you reach that, right?
Yeah.
And it's so far down, it kind of feels like hell because it's all this lava and stuff around. And in the back of the music, there's just this bell, like, gong, gong. And it so much finality to that. And I don't know, I was so pumped when that track was playing and I could hear that.
I think it's even cooler that past that hellish area is the glacial tomb. And that's really the final area. It's kind of like the opposite of what you picture hell to be. Like just an icy, cold landscape with fucking frozen demons in the background. Like,
Exactly.
ensnared in the ice. It was pretty dope for sure.
Yeah, all the demons, like literally the ones that you fight in the Hell Zone, are frozen in the ice in that area.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's really the opposite of what I expected for sure, and it still feels a little weird to me that that's the final area.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be either. I thought it would be. I was always expecting something more twisted and like amorphous and grotesque, but
Yeah.
it just ended up being an ice level.
Just the final boss itself
Yeah.
is that, I guess, right?
You know, bosses. I'm gonna go out and say this. Every boss that isn't a human sucks.
Yep. How about though I liked the those like rainbowish demons, like the metal guys. Like the first one was the guy that gives you the double jump.
Mhm.
I thought that was a cool fight. That was like pretty intense fight. Most intense fight that I had the whole time.
I just think like okay. every boss like that isn't a human, it's so hard to tell what the fuck they're doing. Like that craft work, like I couldn't even tell what it was, so I couldn't read what its attacks were well. And then like the tentacle one and the very first boss with the tentacles in the background that just like happened to fall down sometimes. Like it's just hard to tell what's going on with some of the weird bosses. But the humans, you can always tell. Like it just makes it a much better fight. You know, the humans were way better, were way easier to read and understand what their animations were. But that actually,
I think you got a point. Yeah,
I got this is probably one of my biggest discussion points here. I really wanted to talk about this and what your guys' views would be.
Okay.
Player skill appliance throughout the game is kind of weird. I don't know, this is probably a Castlevania thing, but it just felt like everything in the game exploration part was so fucking easy to get through. Mm-hmm. But then you get to a boss and you get your shit stomped in. It's like you don't get to learn the skills throughout the game to apply to fighting a boss. You know, it's a whole different ballgame than fighting skeletons and like a knight, you know? Like Bloodless, that fight like humbled me so much, and to me Bloodless is the highlight of that whole entire game.
Honestly, yeah.
And I think it's also partly because her fight it's so fucking good. But anyway, we'll get to that later. But my main thing is like the only difficult part, there are two areas I had hard time getting through. And it was the church bell towers were kind of tough. Mm-hmm. And then the Oriental Research Lab. Other than that, everything else is so easy. And there's no way, you're not fighting these enemies. You can kill the enemies in like 3 hits, you know? And you dodge their one attack and then kill them in 3 hits, and that's it. And then all of a sudden, the bosses are doing all this crazy shit, and there's no way to like have been... Like I got... My first couple fights against Zangetsu, I lost fast because he was so much faster than any enemy. He had way more attacks, and I just wasn't anticipating it. There's no way to know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there's the skill appliance through the game just seems strange. Like bosses are the only challenge, and I guess that's the point of the Castlevania games, right? The bosses are the most fun part because there's a boss mode. Like people like to fight the bosses. It's just weird that you have to test your skills by fighting and dying 100 times rather than like getting through the game normally, you know?
Yeah, like I guess it totally switches from like endurance mode where you're just like trying to endure the onslaught of monsters while you're jumping through the castle. Then it switches immediately to once you get into the boss zone, then you're now just like in a very tightly coordinated, like hitbox heavy boss fight.
Yeah. A gauntlet.
Yeah, totally.
It's just weird because I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's not like it bugged me that much, but it's just something I was thinking about. Like, everything else in this game is so fucking easy. and then I hit Bloodless, and I was like, it was the best moment of the game because it was such a hard fight. But I was also like, wow, she's doing things, I've never had to contend with throughout the whole game until now.
Yeah.
There's all these different mechanics that you kind of have to learn throughout the fight that are just like nothing you ever apply anywhere else. And then it's like, this was my favorite part of the Bloodless fight, but it's also a problem when you finally kill Bloodless the first time and you're like, yes, yes. And then she starts sucking all the blood up that you splattered from killing her the whole time. And then it's like, phase 2, baby, let's go. And I was like, my heart dropped so, I was like, no.
Yeah.
And then there's all these mechanics with the blood dripping and like hiding under umbrellas to like get away from it.
my
And
gosh.
like, there's all this stuff like that you never have to do throughout the whole game, except for a boss fight. And it's just weird. I don't know.
Yeah, like
That's
that.
definitely very subjective, I think.
Totally.
Go ahead, Kiowa. I'll let you go
Sorry,
ahead.
yeah, that boss fight was just like definitely the most like mechanic tense point of the game for me too. Definitely felt like much of a bigger accomplishment to kill Bloodless than it did Gremory or Bael or Dominique or anything else. Just Bloodless. That fight in particular was super cool, like super fun. I mean, even though I tried it like a million times. I mean, you guys were
Yeah.
you guys were watching me do that, so yeah. Even though I tried so many times, I was still having a good time in the fight. It just felt like I was getting closer and closer each time, but there was just so much I had to break through with her that I don't know. It just felt like a really good accomplishment once I finally beat her.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I found
And then the game goes downhill.
kind of, yeah, I honestly think it does a little bit. I mean, that became, once I got that was like my favorite like ability. I stopped using Cerulean Splash and I was just using the Blood Suck or whatever it was
Bloodsteal.
called. Yeah, Blood Steal. And I would just use that to heal back because honestly, healing is the most broken thing in the game.
Why do you think healing's broken?
Oh well, that's just how I defeated every boss in the game eventually.
Oh, you mean from eating from your menu?
Yeah. Like that was once I realized like that. Maybe that's the reason why the Bloodless fight was like the funnest and most intense thing for me, because I only had like a tiny handful of healing items, and I didn't want to run back to town.
That's my exact experience too. I had 3 pound cakes, and that's all I had through the
Yep.
whole fight.
Yep, exactly. And I had like 2 fried fish or something like that. I can't exactly remember. Maybe it was pound cake, honestly. It sounds like pound cake might have been it for me as well.
It was like tiny heals too.
Yeah.
It was like so bad.
Yep, so tiny to the
mean-
point where I had to just be, very cautious of like going through and like taking hits. Like sometimes I could tell like if I just took a bunch of hits right away that I just already wasn't going to beat her at this rate.
Yeah.
Just because you have to do it really, really perfectly. So that's, yeah, I mean, after that boss fight, I kind of just realized how strong healing was. And I just, like, realized that it was, that beating a boss wasn't as much of a skill barrier as it was a financial barrier.
Yeah.
Just to make sure
I think that's
that you had enough food in your inventory, to go in and kill whatever you're fighting.
yeah.
Because you
I
can...
very much agree.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter how bad you are at a certain point, you can just financially overcome whatever boss is in the game, which is Miriam's true power at the end of the day.
Stuffing her
a
face full of
bottomless
food.
stomach.
A bottomless stomach, yep.
That's a complaint that you hear a lot about Breath of the Wild. It's the same exact thing, as you can just open your pause menu and as much food as you can carry, which is not much of an issue. And the game gets more fun if you limit yourself from that. Like, I think you enjoyed the Bloodless fight a lot because you didn't go back,
Yep.
you didn't go grind.
Yep.
So the whole experience is pretty subjective, because I think I may have heard before that Koji Igarashi's games are generally too easy. People's consensus seems to be, and Bloodstained really lets you out level and out gear so easily. And yeah, you're totally right. Bloodless seems like the climax of the game in terms of enjoyment. It does just get easier and easier from there as your options continue to open up.
Yeah, Bloodless is that perfect threshold where you don't have all these ways to get so strong. And then once you get there, you start unlocking, or, you get to these areas to be able to farm shit, and it's just like cake after that. So the consensus is that Igarashi's games are easy. So
it's just something I think I've read, I'm not sure. I definitely agree. I thought the whole game was on the easier side, and I think we picked the wrong difficulty. If you think the game was too easy, that's because normal probably should have been labeled easy.
Yeah.
The hard mode, I ran through hard mode on New Game Plus, so I'm unfortunately unaware of just how more difficult it was, but there were more enemy placements on the map.
Oh.
And I think that would have probably made the game at least a little harder, and Nightmare is just bullshit because you are stuck at level 1 the whole game.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
So that's interesting, though. That's a whole nother thing about difficulty settings. Because normal is normal, and it's the way the game's meant to be played. Right?
Yeah.
It's the most
or so
tuned.
you would assume because it's called normal.
Yeah. But I guess it is impossible to account for people's skill levels. But my skill level, only having played basically Hollow Knight, I shouldn't have been,
Which is a tough game, to be fair,
Yeah.
based on most accounts.
So my combat, my 2D planed Metroidvania combat experience is a little bit padded with Hollow Knight, but otherwise I, should be in the case. I should be in the normal difficulty, I would assume, But
I think it was just too easy to take advantage of the game's mechanics.
It's way too easy to become way overpowered, and it's like it's not cool. And see, that's the thing, is like Kiowa, you didn't become overpowered by stats and by shards. You became overpowered with your stomach. Your stomach became overpowered.
Exactly.
And that's how you went through the game. And so it's and I had another huge thing actually about being overpowered, because you build up all these passive shards that give you passive bonuses forever. You inhale all these shards, grade 9, rank 9, and throughout the story they say, oh, don't let your shards control you. It's a bad thing to have a lot of shards, but it never is. There's never any negative effect in the game.
Good point.
And there's no reason. It's stupid. And then Jeeble dies because of it. Jeeble dies, losing himself to his shards. He must have been a fucking weak-ass bitch if he died to his shards. And we imagine though, because we inhale all these hundreds of shards, how many did he have to die to his shards before we did? And then he went down in like fucking 5 hits like a puss ass.
Right? And then he actually died though, right? He physically is dead. Like, I thought he just turned red or something into like the crystal.
Yeah, he crystallized.
He was consumed by that crystalline. That must have been the shards overtaking him.
I just wish that there was, like, it would have been, for one thing, at a fullness meter. At a fullness meter, you can't eat all the food you want. The second thing is there needs to be a negative consequence for inhaling shards and becoming super overpowered, because
like a Witcher toxicity or something, or like you can only allocate so many points.
Yeah, because that's a thing they say through the whole game. It's like something that I was actually, as a player, I was kind of conscious of in the beginning. I was like, oh shit, should I be getting all these shards? Is this what I should be doing?
Yeah.
And then it was not even an issue.
Like,
it just didn't.
Yeah, if they had like some alternate ending spliced into the game where you didn't rely on shards, like maybe if you used too many shards, or if you upgraded your shards too much and completed the game with all of those like shards on, or maybe some specifically really powerful shards like that lightning one, that could be like a forbidden shard, and you could feel free to use it, but then by using it might give you like a less than desirable ending where you ultimately are consumed by your shards. But instead, it just seemed like they really... Yeah, it seems like there was really, truly no bad thing to it. I guess maybe they reveal some of that later when Alfred's talking to Miriam about like how she's the chosen one. She is the one to wield the shards.
She's so powerful.
Yeah, that's pretty dumb. I was kind of like skeptical. That was the thing too, is that they totally they just justify it so easily. And then I think even Johannes at the end is like, "Don't worry, I can help you. I figured out a way to help you."
Yeah.
And I was like,
I can stop you from being corrupted.
Yeah, and it's
my
like,
gosh.
how? Why didn't you do that earlier?
Or to
It's just
Jeeble.
like,
Or to Jeeble. Or to my
Yeah, help
fucking
out
friend
Jeeble.
Jeeble.
yeah,
Oops.
he just didn't want to get cucked by Jeeble, so he waited until he died
Yeah.
to.
And let's talk about like the alchemist in the first place. Like, what a dumb move to frickin' like summon these demons.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't
you'd
know
expect
why.
more of an ancient and secret society. You'd expect more of the alchemists like John Dee, which they briefly mentioned. Who's
Yeah,
a
like-
real character. They made reference to a real life, real human being named John Dee. And then, because he was just a super famous alchemist. But then the alchemists in the game had really no reason to summon the demon portal. That was totally
It
out
was
of
something
line.
about finances or something really, really dumb. Like they were going to lose funding from the government or something to that effect. So they're like, all right, we got to summon demons and then people will think they need us.
Like the steam, yeah, that's right. The Industrial Revolution was, machines were becoming more powerful than man, right? So they need to stop. They need to stop society, press the brakes down on society, and summon some demons for us to all contend with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to be totally honest. After watching the intro movie about that and then only a few boss fights in with some exposition, I kind of tapped out of the whole story. I just wasn't into
Right?
it.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
definitely.
did not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jade.
Oh, Alfred is the biggest contender for me for believability. I just couldn't understand what he was trying to do and why he didn't explain himself at first if he was a good guy. It was just kind of weird. It seemed really contrived that he fought you and then was trying to help you for some reason. If he knew you were the fucking chosen one, then why would he fight you over the book or whatever
Right.
it was? It was just
Yeah.
That's just
Miriam
such a
asked that.
JRPG trope.
Oh, Miriam said.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Miriam says at some point, why didn't he just tell me? And I forget the reason because it was so stupid.
He didn't want
He
to
wanted to
worry
test
you.
you. He was
Yeah,
testing you.
something like that, yeah.
That's just such a dumb
Would you have
excuse.
believed him, I think was the answer.
Would you have believed him? I would have honestly believed whatever they said, because I was just mashing A the whole time.
I mean, let's be real. The game, the gameplay is the draw here.
Yeah.
It's obviously so fun to do. Everything else, and the story is just
Yeah,
it's just set dressing.
visuals so good, gameplay so good, actual story, I don't know, probably lukewarm at best.
Yeah,
it seems
big
like
game.
I've seen this exact game happen so many times already.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Alfred, I am defeated. I'm about to die. I'm about to die. I've got only a couple sentences left here, so I'm gonna say, Miriam, I'm sorry that I lied to you this whole time. And then you
You're the chosen one.
you are the chosen one. And then he just lays there and no one picks him up or does anything.
And then you go the room over and go back and his body's gone. And you're like, whoa, he's
Yes.
alive. He's alive.
Maybe,
Actually.
hey, maybe he is. Speaking of alive and dead, did Zangetsu die?
No,
No.
I doubt it.
it's
Yeah,
implied
there's-
that he's alive at the end. I
there's-
think.
Yeah, I bet if any of us completed the Zangetsu run, we would know. Because there's
Yeah.
that point where he's about to do that mega attack, and then Gremory's just like, you forgot something. You forgot about my ground floor attack.
And he says, "See you later,
he's
Miriam,"
like,
and he just disappears.
Impossible.
Miriam, this is what I've tested you so many times for. He makes
Yeah,
you
everyone
fight him
keeps
again
everything
too. I
from him.
love that. One test
Yeah, that
wasn't
was-
enough. He's a teacher. Really, he's your elementary school teacher, making sure that you
Yeah, because
pass.
the elementary school. They fight you when you're in elementary school.
That's what
The physical aptitude test.
wherever Zangetsu is from. Nippon, I believe it was.
Yeah, he's from the East,
Yes.
man. He's from Japan. I loved David Hayter, man. I was such a treat to just have him there.
David Hayter.
He says the name of the game at the start too, right?
That's
Bloodstained.
when it was the opening and he said Bloodstained. And I was like, was that David Hayter just like a cameo real quick saying the name of the game? And then he came in later and he was all like, Miriam, you piece of shit. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on? It was David Hayter.
I
it was
freaked
awesome.
out when that happened because I didn't know.
Who's
David Hayter is the voice of Solid Snake, the OG voice of Solid Snake
Oh.
from Metal Gear Solid.
So that's why you were calling Zangetsu Snake. I thought because of his personality,
Weeaboo Snake.
his
No.
silent protagonist sort of style of cold, hard delivery, cold, hard justice.
Instead, it's even more meta. It's in another video game.
Yeah.
I love Zangetsu though. Like I liked what he added to the story. I think all in all, having Zangetsu there is like even another playing character just made things interesting. Like the fact that he's just this random guy who's just so strong. He's equally as strong as the Shard Binders or whatever.
The Shard
Dude, he
Breakers.
wrecks.
The Shard Busters.
Even when you beat him the second time, it almost seems like he still wasn't trying very hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's,
Yeah, he was cool. Zangetsu was kind of cool.
Yeah, even though he
I'll
was like
admit it.
campy and like that moment when he just lassoed you onto the train with him. It was just so amazingly like campy. It looked like I'm watching like Batman, like the original series or something.
And he's all like protecting you against the boss, and he's like, Miriam, get behind me. And you're
Yup.
like,
Get on my chain!
get on my chain. Yeah, that's right. He's like, that's so funny. Yeah, he's such a dork, dude. I kind of do love Zangetsu because he's it seems like he's trying so hard.
Yeah.
It seems like he's trying so hard to just fill this like cool character archetype, but he's just not. Even though they
Yeah,
say
exactly.
like, he's suffered and he has scars all over his body and his parents were killed when he was a little kid, I'm just like, dude, this guy is just a weeaboo. Like,
Yeah.
he just wants to be so edgy and strong, but he's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's definitely
similar
he's
opinion.
almost comic relief in the game, honestly. Let's be real. Like
Yeah.
he just like
That's true.
whenever things were getting a little too dark and too demented, he would swing in on his chain and shake things up for you a little bit. You never know if you're gonna end up fighting the guy or if he's gonna end up saving your life from a bunch of bullets on a train.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
entire death it seemed weird too. It was so fast where
Yeah.
he's just like, see you later, and he goes into the ground and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, that was so weird. I was like, oh, is he?
And-
did she just teleport him somewhere?
And
or
those
what
little
happened?
those little talismans that he shot out like stayed on every like rock and everything in the background during that fight too.
Yeah, it was
So
cool.
I wonder like if that I wonder what that was going to be, or if that alone might be the only way that you were able to even defeat Gremory, like if he put some seal in the room that stopped Gremory from escaping.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming that is the justification for it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he was about to do some cool blast or something. Some
Did anyone
Naruto
think
blast.
Zangetsu was on our side? Like, did anyone buy into the fact that he was supposed to be an enemy or like a rival
Oh,
at the start?
immediately I could. Well, I mean, just the fact that you know that you can play as the guy, I think, is enough of a
Yeah.
cue that he's not an enemy right away. So
I think that was a stretch goal as well, to have him have his own little playable story in the with the Kickstarter.
And I like that. I like that. Apparently, since like the other games, the 18-bit or 16-bit games or whatever, were like he was the character. He was the playable character in the game, which is
Yeah.
cool that he's got this little like backstory and everything too.
It is cool. Yeah, I didn't expect. I thought that he would be just a rival that you fight sometimes, but I didn't think he'd be like a bad guy or anything. But Dominique
Dominique.
did not. I honestly thought that was kind of weak from Dominique
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
the traitor, and like it just seemed so shoot in and kind of forced. But it was pretty easy to tell, like when she was talking to Alfred
That
or
one
whatever.
time,
you were like,
yep, that one time when
she's got
you meet her in the
ulterior
monkey
motives.
room in the with all the test
Yeah.
tube monkeys. Yeah, she
And Cole and I were
The
talking about
testy
this at
monkeys.
some point where she's like, that was all the ruse, and I got all the shards that you've been giving me throughout the game, and it's all to make me power. And I was like, dude, I never sold shards to you.
yeah,
kept
I never
all my
sold a
shards.
single shard to her.
So it was just another thing where it was like, she's trying so hard to get.
I got
shards
all
from
of
you,
your
and-
money in exchange for
Yeah.
items and goods
Yeah.
which you used and had value to buy
Yeah,
from
thanks
me.
for supplying me on my run. Yeah, it's like,
It was
You
pretty easy to see
bankrolled
through
my
her whole
treachery,
deception.
is what she's saying, basically.
yeah, but then at the same time, she's like supplying you through the game to win, to beat everyone.
Yeah, honestly, I would have not beat the game if she wouldn't have sold me that 16-bit coin. So it was really jokes on her at the end of the day for even helping me in the first place.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping she would be a playable character, to be
Yeah,
honest.
straight up.
I thought that, like, if she's so evil for one thing also, then why did she protect that little girl in the very beginning of the game?
Just so she could replace her as the shopkeeper.
Yep, I guess so. It just doesn't, I don't know. It was just funny when I looked back at that first cutscene.
Or even she's just so steeped in treachery and deceit that she saved that girl purely to convince you of her intention, perhaps.
Yeah, she's 5 steps ahead, honestly.
Yeah. Except
Yeah.
for selling me all of that food that remained in my inventory for the whole game when I eventually would come back to kill her. Whoops. A little bit of a misstep on her part.
I was really let down by the fight against her and also the final boss, for sure. Like, the final boss looked so cool.
Yeah.
It looked like that's what I wanted, like, the last areas of the game to be like, some weird fucked up twisted
Alternate
like fleshy
dimension.
Yeah, some weird shit like that. And all these heads, it was like unsettling, these heads rolling around, but then they didn't hardly do anything, and I just sat there and attacked like 12 times and it was over. And I was like,
Yeah, you steamrolled through the end pretty hard.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was-
the end took me the fight with Dominique was fun and intense, but then the fight with like the demons was just switch to your spear and just like do this same rotation over and over and over, and basically I just like didn't even have to dodge the little projectiles. I would just sit
that's
there
all the attack.
and
It was
just
a
like-
projectile. Bale, all he did was those projectile attacks, and you'd think that he would do some cool demonic shit, but like it was pretty weak. And you know what's kind of funny about these games in general too is that, you know, you get hurt if an enemy touches you,
yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
why don't the bosses just don't even attack and run at you and just, you know, it's funny like that could be a way
Yeah, like
to, it just like frustrated me when like in Bloodless when she would like just she would do this quick turn and bump into me and then run away, and I was like, what the fuck, she's getting free hits. And I just thought how ridiculous it would be if that is all she did through the fight, and it would be so fucking hard to win.
Yeah,
And it's
touch
like,
damage is absurd.
like I always joked about when I was playing through the game, like deaths by choreographed enemy attacks 10%, deaths by enemy just running around and hitbox killing me, like 90% of my deaths probably were just to the enemy's hitbox
Yeah.
touching me.
I have a problem with that in a lot of games where the hitbox or just them touching you, touch damage is so absurdly high, or it causes a lot of knockback. And yeah, it is more dangerous than actual attacks, and that feels really, really lame.
yeah, it's cool. It's kind of cool that like you need to know your weapon and your abilities and keep a distance. Like that's kind of a fun strategic part of a fight. But when the boss can drop what they're doing and just walk towards you and fuck everything up and do like hundreds of damage, it gets pretty ridiculous. But
It seems like it would have been much more entertaining to not have bosses, at least bosses, do that. Like, yeah, there is a point, I think, to maintaining distance with your weapon, learning your weapon and whatnot, and, that gives more credence to guns for being at a range to give it an advantage. But then watching Bloodless just tap Kiowa and do so much damage while he was dodging all the attacks so well, it's heartbreaking. It shouldn't be like that.
Like, I liked how with the Dominique fight, she didn't have, her hitbox didn't hurt you. And that made the fight, her hitbox didn't hurt you. And that made the fight seem like so good and so open, and it was clean. It was a clean fight. But then, you're able to just do so much more when all you have to do is like focus on her dodging her attacks. Like, I was getting it down to a science where I'm like dodging even her like elbow attacks, her badass elbow attacks. Like, it just felt good to not have to contend with the hitbox. And it's like, if that's what every boss in the game was like unless the boss has like outward facing spikes, that but I mean, maybe the Aegis armor should protect you from hitbox damage.
Yeah, that would have been a nice addition to it.
But I don't know, or if there was a type of armor that did that, I would have preferred to play the game entirely like that. But I guess it does add to like the intensity overall of the game, and it gives you more of a sense of accomplishment when you beat something super tough like that. Like the same way with Dark Souls. Yeah, like exactly. Bloodless. Like with Dark Souls, it's just like such an intense like encounter that you just feel accomplishment when you beat it.
And there's no hitbox damage. No hitbox damage in Dark Souls.
Yeah, Dark Souls can make fights that are good without touch damage. And what does Dark Souls do differently? I mean, a totally different game. Yeah. What I think they could do is just give your weapon a sweet spot so that you still have to position properly in the fight, but and give the bosses attacks that match the fact that touching you doesn't hurt you.
Yeah, like because Bloodless, it would be, she'd do that tornado one, right? That tornado attack where she would squish, like go sweeping across the whole room. But if you were like crouching behind her, you could just stab her over and over and over and over again, because it was like that was the exploitable moment to get a ton of damage. But then she would just turn around and run into you real fast. So then it's like, it would be cool, if they just added a little bit more, like maybe she could spin around and do something, or maybe have a higher chance to hit you, or they just added an extra attack or something to punish you for punishing her like that, rather than just walking into you and running into you later. Like when she gets those tornadoes and you're stuck like either in the center or the outside of the ring, the two big cyclones in the middle of the room or whatever.
And then she just walks over and occupies that space, and it's so dangerous because her just being there is like, oh no.
I guess that's... obviously they designed it to be like that, and it is definitely intense and scary, and it does take a lot of skill to navigate, but geez, it's frustrating to just take 100 damage from bumping into her.
Or any enemy, or the final boss too, Bale. Like, I had a huge problem with Bale, like just bumping into him all the time. That was like almost 100% of my damage from that boss fight was just getting tapped over and over by the heads that would just move around, like they were bobbing up and down and moving in weird directions, twisting around the circle and stuff. And even like the whiskers of the cat damaged me, I think, at one point. Like,
those are like the spikes you wanted. Yeah. Those are like the spikes that you get impaled on.
Yeah, like those hitboxes are like so unforgiving. Like if you even get like close to them, you're just punished for it. But I guess, they left the game like pretty like up to you, like however you wanted to accomplish the game. Like I found my strategy, like my ultimate strategy for the game was like clear the rooms with Dulla hammers, and find a couple weapons that I was like proficient with and like had good damage, like my highest possible weapons, and then just fight the bosses however I can, but always make sure to have enough food to kill whatever boss. And I think I took like, it must have been almost like 30 pork rice into the Bale boss fight. So I just had so much food. I could have accomplished anything by just eating endless food. So that's just kind of my way of breaking the game, getting even for those crazy, insane hitboxes. And I guess if they didn't want me to do that, then they could have limited or mitigated my ability to eat endlessly.
They could have and should have.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big thing.
By the time I reached the end of just the original playthrough, because I was taking so much time just having fun exploring literally everything and collecting shards just to play with them. I had Tisro's Iron, this light laser. I would walk into a room and it was a directional. I would just spray it across the room and everything would insta-die. So I don't even know what the mechanics of Dominique or Bale were because they just melted.
I think I killed Dominique pretty fast too, which is why I didn't know about the hitbox thing.
It sounds like you guys just had a totally different experience with it. Like you grinded, I should say.
Yeah.
You ground your way up.
I ground.
Up to the
surround.
Yeah, down to like the fundamentals of the game were just nothing to you because you were so strong.
When I realized that food buffs were like permanent, that there's so many things in the game that just make you so fucking strong. There's so many different ways to get so strong.
Yeah, it feels worthwhile to take advantage of them in the first half of the game.
Yeah.
Because I think you guys were onto something there with Bloodless as a turning point. And then beyond that, it starts to compound a lot if you've been taking advantage of it.
And it's like, it's a thing, so why wouldn't you do this? I could understand not grinding shards to rank 9, grade 9. You know, I could get that. But, you know, that's like 500 extra HP. You get like 10 mana regen or 10 MP regen per second. Like, if you eat all this max food, you get strength, you get defense, you get all kinds of stuff. And then that compounded on your shards and the stuff that you gain from permanent increases. If you like, it doesn't even take long to grind out.
I didn't
shards.
see you grind much at all.
Yeah.
And you still made quick work because you just took advantage, really slight advantage of the mechanics that they were spelling out and wanting you to utilize.
Yeah. And it feels like if you're supposed to not become strong to make the game like not one-shot kill bosses, there's obviously some balance issues if that's, you know, this is the normal mode, you know, and it seems like it's I don't know, it's too hard to, since there's so mechanics and so many mechanics and ways to get strong, it seems like kind of hard to account for every play style, like Kiowa, you know, where it's a challenge, you know, for you, but you still just eat and like get through things with your ingenuity and your Doula hammers, and like, but then there's like players like me and Cole who spend like maybe an hour or something getting shards to max, which is like what the point of the shards is. There shouldn't be that. That's the shitty thing though. Because that's where the fun in the game is building a character like that.
Yeah.
But there almost shouldn't be that many ways to get so overpowered so fast.
They could have tuned the game differently for sure.
Yeah, I guess there's just, you know, so many different ways that you can go about tackling the exact same objectives. I guess that's probably one of the things that I think was coolest about the game, is that, you know, you just had so much, you know, diversity and choice of what you could do. So many paths that you could go, but, you know, they all lead you to the same destination.
Very true. Another thing, this is just a really quick thing, unless, you know, you guys have any more points.
That's probably like my biggest set of talking points. I think I already just kind of squeezed them into the conversation, so.
Yeah, I'm running low, but I definitely wanted to bring up the map.
Yeah? What about the map?
The map makes me really
mad.
What the
fuck about the map?
Fuck the dumbass map. They really fucked it up. They really wanged it. They really flubbed the map. Because there's no indication for what separate areas. There's no visual representation of anything. So when you're looking at the map, it's just a big collection of blue squares. and there's like, it's kind of hard to tell, like, where's the garden
Forbidden
of
Garden
Sorrow or whatever
yeah,
it's called.
Or
Where's the
secret
forbidden
desert.
secret garden? Where's the forbidden forest? Where's the secret slippery desert? The sandy
Where's the
slopes?
salubrious
You know?
laboratory?
Maybe I'm a casual, or maybe I holy shit, salubrious. Maybe I'm a casual, or maybe I'm once again pampered and loved, held sweetly by Hollow Knight, because the map is, you can tell what areas are what just by the design of the drawings on the map and stuff. But I was really hoping, like, why couldn't the garden just have green rooms? Why couldn't the golden luxurious castle palace part have
Right.
like gold rooms? And why couldn't they just put the names of the fucking places on them? I know it's really minor. It's super minor, but it just sometimes confused me, like, oh, where was the one place? And I had to look at the collection of maps, and like I realized that the three lateral rectangles all in a stack was like, that's the loading room, and then that's the first room into the thing. I had to start like going by that to figure out where the separation of areas were.
Yeah.
I mean, this is if you're checking your map. If you're in the teleporter thing, then it tells you, what areas.
It tells you
are
the name
which.
of the teleporter you're going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just checking your map and stuff for reference and for points of interest, I didn't like that there was no way to tell where anything was.
I'd blame that on the reverence that this game seems to hold to the older Castlevania, because that's kind of just how at least for sure, Symphony of the Night is the exact same. It's just a bunch of blue tiles as you uncover rooms. And, if you look at older Metroid games, it's not a sign of the times. Older Metroid games would segment areas by color and
right.
have a name attached to them. So
Yeah.
it's really just this game not wanting to evolve or be kind to the player, or just so stuck up the original Castlevania series ass that
Yeah.
it's just got a bit of unreadability, and there are other issues in the game that we've already addressed.
It doesn't want to shed the legacy of the Castlevania series. And if
It has-
you don't like it, then go play Hollow Knight or whatever you keep
Or
talking
Metroid
about.
Fusion.
That's like, like if Igavania fans were like Dark Souls fans,
Oh,
they'd be
yeah.
shitting on us. But I mean, honestly though, I had a lot of fucking fun playing this game, like regardless through everything. It was a really good time for sure.
There were certain points in
But-
the game, like I think, like the certain moments, like the bloodless fight, or when I figured out exactly how powerful like the Dullahammers were. Like I was just like really, really enthralled in the game. And certain things that would happen later in the game would kind of break the illusion for me when I saw how truly easy things could have been for me the whole time if I just wanted to spend money on food and steamroll whatever fight. But yeah, like I totally like had a good time playing the game. And yeah, there were just certain moments of the game when I was totally enamored, like with the familiars and how they can level up to 99, and just collecting certain shards that I really was fond of, and trying to level those up and gathering the materials to craft really good weapons too. I thought it all played really
Yeah.
well together.
The alchemy system was great.
And then visually too, the game was just top notch. Like, just looked
It was
so
pretty
cool.
cool.
Like the background, like especially when you're going up to Giebel's like boss fight, like that royal room was so nice. I remember thinking just that area looked so cool.
Definitely.
I had a lot of fun with the game too, especially earlier on and even late into the game when everything didn't really pose a challenge. I was a little let down by the lack of challenge, but I was still having fun just playing with the alchemy system, and yeah, the shards, customizing, just trying to figure out different weird wacky things and filling out the compendium. For that completionist, the collector in me, it satisfied that urge too as well.
And like the alchemy system is actually, it was really, really fun. Like usually in games with the crafting and stuff like that, I'm not into it, but and they made it somewhat easy to get all the achievements, and you can kind of tell from the achievement completion rate, compared to a lot of other games that are like, here's your achievement for getting 100% of the achievements, and it's like, oh, 2% of players have this. But this game was like 13 or 20% or something like that. but like it was so much more fun. It didn't feel like a slog to try and craft all the weapons. I had a lot of fun like crafting. It was kind of post game stuff for me, but I kind of wish I would have done a lot more of it throughout my playthrough for sure, other than maxing shards. But it was cool.
It was a bit of a dilemma because if you did that, then yeah, the game becomes even more easy than it already was.
Yeah, big.
There are almost two sides of it where there seems like an entertaining action game there that holds its roots in the original Castlevania stuff that isn't nearly as solid as Hollow Knight. But then you have this completionist collection, like Metroid would have the heart tanks and the missile tanks and stuff, and of course the Castlevania games that this draws from. If you like that stuff, that's there too, and that continues on past the game.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just like altogether a pretty good package. I just wish it was like balanced better to offer just even a little more challenge. I guess maybe if I could go back and do it again with like being clean, no knowledge of the game, I would have no knowledge other than that I could kill the final boss in like 20 seconds. If I'd play on normal, then I would play on hard. You know, I would choose that instead to have a little more of a time with the game.
I wish I would have played on hard as well. That's one of my bigger takeaways in this experience.
Yeah, the hard probably would have been a better difficulty for me as well, just because it was so easy. I mean, I still feel like the way that I chose to beat the game would still let me easily beat it on hard, but then Nightmare mode sounds just like insane, where you're just like level 1 the whole game.
That seems pretty evil.
I tried Nightmare and it instantly just was a frustrating touch damage from the very first enemies was over half of my health, and I just immediately wasn't having fun.
That sucks that there's no, I guess hard from a fresh playthrough. It must have to just be on hard mode. Otherwise, there's no reason to fill stuff out in the end game to bring over to New Game Plus. Because Cole, you said New Game Plus on hard mode was so easy still, right?
Yeah, nothing really changed. There were more enemies, but I didn't notice a difference in the difficulty of anything because I was already so strong
so it
originally.
Sucks that you can't like build out your character and have a fun, challenging time with your rewards that you did. You just have to suffer in Nightmare mode.
Yeah,
regardless.
That's the only thing that's going to challenge you, and all it is
it's
maybe later into it. When you start getting more options, it would become more entertaining. But immediately, right at the start, it was so oppressive that I didn't want to bother with it. And a lot of the extra modes in that game didn't feel like they were worth bothering.
So the takeaway is, don't level up your shards. Don't play the game how you want to. Don't eat food, and you'll have a much better time. Don't play with the mechanics of the game. Just
impose some restrictions on yourself, I suppose, is how you're going to make your own fun with the game.
I mean, it's still fun. Let's be honest, but the challenge.
I mean, the way I made my fun was the collecting, that's how you have to approach these sorts of games, I think, because I don't think it was designed to be challenging.
Yeah, probably like the funnest thing for me was like the RPG aspect of it. Like, I really liked the fact that it was, a Metroidvania, which, even in a game like Hollow Knight, where it's not so much of an RPG as it is a straight up Metroidvania. There's no level system. There's no followers and like leveling stuff, leveling schemes for everything. Mm-hmm. So that's probably like one of my favorite aspects of Bloodstained. It's like a full Metroidvania where there's levels and progression, and even just grinding like through enemies will level you up and make you stronger, which I think is like just a fun addition to like the Metroidvania formula.
Yeah, I like the marriage. I always the experience and the endorphin release that you get when you level up. Like when you see that level up. You just
hit the enemy, you just slash the enemy, and immediately you level up.
You get that when you master a technique too, but unfortunately, the shards were so strong in the game that honestly, using technique seemed like a waste of time.
And the one technique that I did fully master just was so arbitrary. Like, Yeah, not needed at all. Like just a backstep attack ability that's slightly stronger. Yeah, so not too
Mm-hmm.
necessary.
Yeah, techniques, the whole entire process of earning them, they're locked to a specific weapon. I don't I don't know why. Can do you either of you know why it's like that?
I know.
I imagine just the animations, right? You couldn't have a whip technique that could work on a
No, no,
sword,
no,
or
no. I
what?
mean how you have to use a specific whip
Oh,
Whoa.
to unlock
yeah.
that move on all the other whips.
I do know that certain weapons have actual techniques because, like, the one technique that I did master was like that power cut backstep with the sword. And technically, Bloodstain or
Yeah.
Bloodless's umbrella is a sword, and that one did have her. What did she say? Like, she had a name for one of her big attacks. She would always shout it.
Blood blank.
Bloodshot.
Blood
She
something.
would say, I think she'd say, it'd be like, I think she said like, "I love Jade. I love Jade." She'd say. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. I'm pretty
No,
sure
I
it
don't
was
think she
something
said
like she
that. Nice
loves
try though.
Jade, or like her husband Jade, or something like that. I think.
Hmm.
She would scream like, "This is for you, Jade."
So the sword,
Yeah, that was it.
Yes,
there,
exactly.
it depended on the element of your sword what it would shoot at. But that was just a special one.
Yeah, but then some of them that were elementless, like when you had the technique mastered for another sword, like it kind of made sense for this one because it was like there was always some sort of elemental effect that would shoot out of the sword or something specific to those weapons that would allow you to use that ability in the first place. Like Bloodless's umbrella, she shot out that blood spray attack. And then the encrypted orchid, which was the sword that I used for the entire game, uh, it was like, yeah, it was like some lightning ability would strike that zone and just keep doing like continuous damage in that area for just a little bit. Not a whole lot of damage though, nothing to write home about. But yeah, there was just like little elemental attacks. So I feel like it maybe had something to do with like invoking the element of that weapon, but then once you mastered the technique, you can use it for anything. And then when I used it on a weapon that didn't have an element type, it was just like the most boring and basic attack ever. And there's like even less reason to use it. It was just a slightly stronger hit. No cool elemental effects, no range, just a lukewarm thing. So
Yeah.
that's the only insight I have as to why other elements don't have, or other weapons don't have the technique usability.
I mean, every weapon could eventually use it, though, is the weird thing. So, locking it to specific weapons to learn it and master it to use it on other weapons, again, seemed like an arbitrary step in doing what you wanted. And it didn't even matter anyway because of how weak. Like, using a technique, it cost you MP just like shards. It required an input like a fighting game, like a motion on your controller, so it took time. You could get hit stun while you were starting it up. After you had consumed the MP, you could get hit, knocked out of it, waste all of that, and all of that time you could just stand at a distance and just shoot a shard move and
Yeah.
be fine.
Magic is OP.
Shards
Are
OP.
OP.
Shards are OP, techniques are underpowered, maybe except katana because they gave katana so many.
Techniques are up,
Techniques are up.
and shards are
Yeah.
op.
Food
It's
is
just a shame,
food
honestly.
is game breaking. Food just breaks the game.
Yeah, especially if you were eating for the bonuses.
Yeah, really needs. I don't know. That's a shame. I hope I am really excited for more games in this series. Like it was a really really good time. I hope they're making more. I just hope that they get that. I know next time with Bloodstained 2, Bloody. No, what would this curse? No, they used curse. They used
Overdue.
ritual.
Bloodstained overdue.
For Bloodstained Overdue, I'm gonna pick hard mode right away for sure. Like, I know
Yeah.
that.
That's probably
And
the number one way we could all improve our experience is just make it a little bit harder on ourselves.
yeah.
Such seasoned veteran gamers as us.
Oh, and you know what? Actually, before you continue your point, did you know that you could beat the bosses without even getting hit, and you would get a special item for it?
Yeah.
So there was incentive to try and master these fights, but it was just kind of made bullshit by the touch damage thing. So
Yeah.
Dang, I did not know about those items because I never got a single boss without it. Except for maybe Jeeble, because he was so weak.
Yeah, Jeeble. Fucking dweeb ass. Dweeble Jeeble.
Jeeble.
But yeah, I just hope that things are finer tuned and like ironed out now that they have the foundation basically for, you know, mechanics and gameplay and
well, I mean, all things said and done, I'm still looking forward to Bloodstained 2, I'll say that.
Bloodstained
and I
2
almost actually
Overdue.
even want to play Bloodstained 2 Overdue. I'm actually kind of curious to play the other games in the series now, even though I'm not a fan of that type of gameplay.
Yeah, that would be interesting because I bet it does have some pertinence to the story. So,
But I mean,
It's possible.
let's be real, we're not playing for the story at this point. It's kind of drop the ball.
Yeah, I'm completely uninterested.
You know, Zangetsu. Zang,
Yeah,
good old
that's
Zang
true.
story would be cool.
I mean, it seems like a kind of a good starting point, like this weird, generic, like ethereal sort of story where it's like nothing is very
Yeah.
important, nothing is very. Well, I guess it's all kind of important in the context of this game, but it's like nothing groundbreaking, nothing that hasn't been done before in a game, that's for sure. But it's still
Yeah,
like
so-
just a kind of a good spot to start. You know, you've got this generic like conflict that happened in like episode 1 of the game series. You know, and that kind of maybe sets the stage for something in the future because I'm almost certain that they're gonna make more games in the series with how acclaimed and popular Bloodstained has already become, and with the success of their Kickstarter too.
Yeah. And that is very true. Like they did just kind of lay the foundations of how the world worked, and it was a pretty generic story. So hopefully for the next time it'll be a little more it'll explore the facets of the demons and hell more for sure. I want to know more about hell and the connection. Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah,
for
like
that.
there could be seriously cool things that happen, you know, to the world of Bloodstained after the closure of like the Demon Gate, because like now you're almost at like a blank canvas. They could do whatever they wanted with it. You know, that castle, like at the end when that castle disappears, and you're just standing in this like shitty abandoned village. You
And the
almost
sky is blue
think like, wow,
for
this
once.
place looked a lot cooler with that castle here. I kind of miss it. But now it's just a bunch of impoverished.
And Zangetsu's alive.
Yeah, and Zangetsu gets his sword. He's alive. Anybody? We're gonna wrap this up. Anybody else have any big?
Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much said everything,
Big
you know,
points.
that I had to say about it. Like I kind of exploited the game in my own weird way. I had an AFK hunger build, but
Oh my
you
god.
know, it was still even fun to just like you know, see what kind of weird strategies could work. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like I remember we were talking to our friend Brandon.
Yeah.
He was talking up that welcome party
Portrait
or something.
frame.
Welcome party
Welcome
ability.
party.
And I never really used that ability much at all in the game, but he just swore by it so hard. So it's just cool how almost everyone I know just has a totally different way that they came about beating the game, which is, you know, props to Bloodstained for coming up with, you know, a system that encourages diversity in tackling the game itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's one of the greatest strengths of the game, I would say, is just despite the shortcomings of being limited in some areas of spell choice, you can really diversify the rest of your kit as much as you want.
It's very cool.
Grind as much as you want.
Yeah. Become as overpowered as you want.
Extremely overpowered. But yeah, I don't have much else to say either.
Well, cool. Well, I guess we'll slowly bring this Bloodstained episode, to a close. So, shall we reveal what the next episode will entail, or should it be a secret?
What is the next episode? No one's told me.
You don't know
Yeah,
what
no
the
one's
next...
told me.
No one's told me.
Well, I guess it'll be a news to both of you and to all of our 2-3 listeners.
Next episode reveal.
The next episode is going to be covering in great detail, I imagine, just like this episode and the episode prior, the video game Crosscode. We're going to be talking about Crosscode, and I have very, very, very high hopes for that. Probably not as much diversity in building a character, but I think there's a lot of stuff to discuss for sure in that game.
Yeah, as of now, I know next to nothing, so it'll be pretty interesting to dive into that.
Yeah.
Yep, Crosscode is a game that Jade and we already played a good deal of Crosscode, but never came even close to beating it. So
Yep.
we'll be revisiting it and completing the game
Yes.
at long last.
So that will be the next episode. So look forward to that. And I suppose with that, we will bid everyone adieu. And thank you very much for listening, and have a happy midnight.
Happy midnight,
Happy
guys.
midnight.